Welcome to my channel. In my channel, you can watch various type of fiction and fantasy audiobook. If you want more video like this, please subscribe my channel.
American Comics. The Rise begins with Ghost Rider. Part 2. Roger, what should we do? George asked in a low voice. I get it, haha, I finally figured it out. What did you figure out? I figured out the ability of that fruit of mine. Come on, sit tight, we're leaving. Are you crazy? George widened his eyes and pointed to the bridge ahead. It's already broken. You don't think your motorcycle can fly over, do you? Ahead was a cross-sea bridge, with seawater in the middle. Because the bridge had been blown up, the whole structure had collapsed. It wasn't just a matter of accelerating for a few meters to jump across. Ah, my motorcycle can't fly, but it can travel on water. Roger pointed to the water surface. Water. Before George could react, Roger twisted the throttle to the max. After a roar from the Hell cycle, it coolly drove into the water, and then, guided by Newton's coffin lid, fell into the water. Before the many police on the shore could react, there was a gurgling sound in the water, followed by a burst of bubbles, and a Hell cycle blazing with fire shot directly onto the surface of the water. Boom! The Hell cycle floated on the surface, and then its two tires burst into flames, driving across the water with the speed of a speedboat. Ah! After driving onto the water, George screamed loudly from behind, as if he could vent the fear in his heart this way. It wasn't because he had choked on water when he fell in, nor was it because Roger was on fire. He had been mentally prepared for the motorcycle spitting fire earlier, but now. The Roger driving the motorcycle ahead had turned directly into a skull, and that flowing long hair, or rather, flowing flames, which was more appropriate to describe it. This scene was truly terrifying. A skull was driving a motorcycle, taking him on an escape. Was this definitely not a horror movie? Stop screaming, Officer George. Why are you acting like a woman? Your screaming is about to deafen me. Monster. Wait, are you Roger? The skull turned its head, looking at George with a resentful expression, its fleshless bony jaw clattering. Who else but a poor sap like me would have entered the magic mirror with you? You, how did you become like this? You look so scary. Sigh. The skull looked up at the sky with a resentful expression, as if recalling some sad past events. This is why I've been working hard to train and desperately trying to strengthen my control. Other superheroes are either US asses or have cool Iron Man armor. The only mutated one just spits spider silk. But me, I turn directly into a skull. If girls find out my true identity, it'll be hard to get a date in the future. As soon as a girl thinks of this skull face of mine, she'll run away in fear. Seeing Roger acting like a resentful woman, getting more and more off topic, and not even driving the motorcycle, George had to suppress his fear and comfort him. That won't happen. Your transformed appearance is actually quite cool. There will be women who like it. He then silently added in his heart, there should be. Really, don't lie to me. The flaming skull turned around, practically sticking its face onto George's. Ah, George was so scared by this terrifying skull that he fell into the water. Fortunately, a bony claw grabbed him, and he sat back onto the flaming motorcycle. Still shaken, George only saw the skull looking at him with a resentful expression. Maybe a girl will get used to looking at you and might like you. I'm a man, so it's normal that I don't like you. Ahem, now is not the time for this. Roger, look, the helicopters in the sky are here. They might be so angry they'll attack us. Is there any way to deal with them? The two helicopters that were originally flying in the sky had now increased to 4, and they were flying furiously toward Roger and the others. No matter how fast the motorcycle was, it still had a gap compared to the aircraft. Seeing the helicopters getting closer and closer, George started to get anxious again. Here, take this. Use this gun, unleash your ability, and blast it at the helicopters. Roger pulled out his treasure, the Winchester 1887 shotgun. That's right, it was the exclusive firearm of Arnold the Terminator. He chose this gun for no other reason than that he thought a motorcycle, sunglasses, and this gun looked cool and stylish. What, are you kidding me? You want me to use this to shoot down a helicopter? It wasn't that George didn't believe him, but although this gun was powerful, it was still unreliable for shooting down a helicopter. Did you forget about those two fruits Ajayi gave us? If my guess about your ability is correct, it should be something like aiming. Just fire, and I'll provide support, Roger shouted. Support, Roger, what is your fruit's ability? George asked, looking curious. You'll know once you fire, Roger said with a lewd grin. George picked up the Winchester 1887 shotgun and aimed at one of the helicopters, while Roger placed one hand on the gun barrel. Bang! After George fired, a bullet enchanted by Roger flew out of the muzzle, growing larger and larger as it flew, finally turning into a metal bullet with a diameter of 1 meter that hit the helicopter directly. With a loud boom, the helicopter turned into a fireball. Being hit by an enchanted, 1 meter diameter big iron ball, let alone plane debris, not even a speck of dust was left. What the hell, Roger, what's up with your gun? George looked at the Winchester 1887 shotgun in his hand with extreme astonishment. It was as if this wasn't a shotgun, but a giant cannon from a warship. Hee, I just discovered it. That fruit I ate doesn't have any practical ability, just amplification. I didn't know the bullet would get bigger, I just thought it would increase attack speed and power a bit. Roger thought happily, this amplification, if you say it's useless, being able to make the bullet bigger when firing is indeed remarkable. If you say it's useful, what if he meets 2 or 3, or 4 or 5 girls in the future? That scene would be simply too much to look at. Could he get a nickname like Little Prince of the Nightclub? By accident, a drop of flaming drool fell into the water, causing a small puff of steam. If George knew what Roger was thinking right now, he would probably just spit at him. With amplification on a rifle or cannon, wouldn't it be even more powerful? You idiot, the first thing that came to your mind was girls. There are still a few helicopters. They've opened fire. Dodge. Before George could even aim, one of the armed helicopters above had already opened fire. Tat 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 tat. A large heavy machine gun with a caliber over 10 millimeters began strafing the water from the helicopter. But for a mature Hell cycle that had learned to self-drive, this was not a problem at all. The Hell cycle turned left and right, and the armed helicopter didn't manage to hit Roger with a single bullet. Actually, even if he were hit, Roger wouldn't be afraid. He had all kinds of demons and devils protecting him, plus the Ghost Rider's innate immortality. As long as he wasn't blown to smithereens by a high-powered missile, he wouldn't die. But George was in danger. Don't just stare there, hurry up and shoot. Roger shouted hurriedly. To put it bluntly, his own marksmanship was just average. He wasn't a sharpshooter, but he wasn't bad either. Hitting a helicopter constantly flying at high altitude was a bit difficult. It's hard to aim. The speed of the Hell cycle is too fast. I have no way to aim at all, George replied. That dung fruit you ate should come with an innate aiming ability. Focus your mind and try it, it will definitely work. Alright, I'll give it a try. George endured the swaying motion, not caring whether he had aimed properly or not, and fired a shot after focusing his mind. After the shotgun fired, a huge lead ball appeared in midair, but its speed remained fast. This time, the helicopter was lucky, it was hit directly in half and just fell apart, without turning into dust. Yes, I hit it, George exclaimed, excitedly clenching a fist and raising it toward the sky. Next, he mimicked what he had just done, focusing his mind to aim at the remaining 2 helicopters. One shot for each, and suddenly 2 fireballs appeared in the sky. All the aerial pursuers were wiped out. Roger's skull turned to look at George, and he said expressionlessly, I think you're happy too soon. Often, the villain boss only appears at the end. Trash, a bunch of trash. Kamatodo shouted angrily. At the same time, he recalled his days as a police officer. If all the police in New York were this useless, this international metropolis would have long ago turned into ruins. Could it really be that his fellow black brothers were just too incompetent? Kamatodo covered his face helplessly. With his fellow countrymen serving as the elites of high society, was the utopian country he imagined really this unbearable? Was he really going to let 2 people just strut out of his territory like that? Of course not. Kamatodo broke his own rule, he was going to use his authority. Roger, do you think he might come with something even more ruthless? Without a doubt. Don't forget, Sally could conjure up a Godzilla and Superman. Kamatodo must have watched some movies, so it's normal for him to send a few people to block us. Just as Roger finished speaking, a roaring sound came from the sky, and several fighter jets flew in from the distance. George, Roger, what a jinx, speak of the devil, and he appears. Roger wished he could slap himself. He would rather face the Flash, Barry, than a group of fighter jets. After all, in close combat with superheroes, his Hellfire was still the bane of their souls. But these planes were troublesome, if he got hit by a missile, not even his bone fragments would be left. Immediately, Roger decided to head to land. He wouldn't take the water route anymore. The Hell Cycle immediately understood its master's intention, turned around to head toward land, and charged directly into the modern building complex on the shore. Just as they were about to reach the shore, the first missile from the fighter jets arrived. 2 fire-spewing missiles came straight at Roger. Roger made a turn and dodged one, but the missiles were too fast. The other one exploded in the sea not far from him, kicking up a huge wave. The Hell Cycle flew up with the wave, drew a flaming rainbow in the air, and landed steadily on the land. Roger, we have to get out of the fighter jet's line of sight and use the surrounding buildings as cover. George shouted. I know. Once I find a good spot, you just aim and shoot these planes down. Roger weaved in and out as he drove into the complex of high-rise buildings, staging a scene of Fast and Furious. Several more missiles followed immediately, instantly obliterating a building. The roaring sound of the building collapsing, combined with the cries for help from the fleeing crowds, made George feel a sense of guilt. Although he knew all of this was fake, in their perceived world, perhaps this was real. Roger, hurry and find a place to stop. I want to deal with these fools who are killing innocent people indiscriminately. Looking at George's eyes, which were wide with rage, it seemed as if his fury was about to erupt. All right, passenger, hold on tight. The Hell Cycle is about to take you up a skyscraper to fight fighter jets. Roger looked around. He twisted the throttle, and after the motorcycle roared, it began to drive toward a building. Hey, Roger, what are you doing? That's a wall. Hold on tight, we're going to climb the building. Boom. After a loud noise, the back of the Hell Cycle transformed, extending 2 exhaust pipes, and then spewed out a long string of flames. Roger drove the motorcycle straight from the ground toward the building. Upon hitting the wall, he made a turn, drove diagonally onto the building, and then accelerated, shooting straight toward the sky. George had never experienced anything so thrilling in his life, not even on a roller coaster, riding a motorcycle up a high-rise building. The building was at a 90-degree angle to the ground. They were literally climbing a wall now. What was absurd was that the tires of the Hell Cycle were firmly gripping the building's wall. If Newton saw this, he probably couldn't keep his coffin lid down. The world of magic is just that unreasonable, science can't keep it down. George had nowhere to grab, so he could only clutch Roger's waist tightly, his feet firmly clamping the motorcycle, not daring to let go for a moment, fearing that if he were careless, he would fall off the building and die. The Hell Cycle's speed was very fast, at least over 300 kilometers per hour, surpassing the fastest Ferrari. In less than a minute, it carried Roger and George to the top of the building. Huff. George, whose face was pale from the roller coaster ride, tumbled shakily off the motorcycle. The feeling of having his feet on solid ground finally made him feel like he had returned to the human world. Hee, buddy, you look like a wimp who just fought a battle with 10 women for a day and a night, Roger teased. After we get out, you couldn't pay me to ride your Hell Cycle again. All right, those fighter jets are still looking for us, let's get down to business. Taking out the shotgun, George asked curiously, Roger, do you not have any other weapons? It seems like you can hide quite a few things on your person. A motorcycle, a shotgun, a pistol, luggage. It was as if Roger's pockets could hold many things, so he couldn't help but be curious. Sorry, I didn't prepare that many weapons. The missions I usually take don't involve killing people or fighting fighter jets, they are all about exorcism, Roger said apologetically. So I didn't prepare such a wide variety of weapons. Fine, anyway, the shotgun can also fight fighter jets. Roger pulled out another type of ammunition, the kind with small steel balls. Then the two began to cooperate once again, one enchanting, one aiming, just waiting for the fighter jets to fly over again. Finally, when several fighter jets were searching for Roger's figure at low altitude, they passed by the building where they were located. Now, bang, 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 bang. George fired several shots without hesitation. Under Roger's augmentation, the bullets became incomparably huge mid-flight, yet flew toward them without losing any speed. In the sky, suddenly it was densely packed with small steel balls the size of basketballs. The few fighter jets couldn't dodge them at all. After several fireballs exploded in the sky, they fell into the city like meteors. These fighter jets bombing the city without a care in the world would be impossible in reality, but in this dimension, it was just that unreasonable. All right, it's time to go. If we don't leave now, I'm afraid that guy will conjure up something else crazy. Roger prayed to Mephisto, hoping he wouldn't bring out a Superman. He used the Eye of Judgment to take a look. They weren't too far from the weakest point of the glass. Once they reached it, he could use an enchanted bullet to shatter it with one shot, then leave through the space-time gate. The two rode the hell cycle again and sped towards the exit. Another roller coaster ride. You're going to scare me into a heart attack sooner or later. Can't we just take the elevator? George complained. Seeing that Roger was about to go vertical at 90 degrees again and drive down towards the ground, George couldn't help but feel terrified. Time waits for no one. Do you want to take the elevator slowly, or get out of here sooner? Don't blame me for warning you. If he brings out a nuclear bomb next time, we'll be completely done for. Heart disease could be treated later, but escaping was the priority now. George gritted his teeth and got on. You know, you're the first man to ride my bike, and you're holding onto my waist. I always feel so awkward about it, Roger said uncomfortably. Shut up, Roger. I feel even more awkward than you. Just drive. The nagging Roger had no choice but to start the hell cycle again, and its two wheels began to spew fire once more. Then, amidst George's renewed screaming, they slid directly down the building's wall, the two tires ignoring Newton's coffin lid and gripping the wall firmly. This time it went relatively smoothly. With nothing flying in the sky, the police on the ground couldn't stop Roger at all. A bike that could climb walls and evade, get to know it. Soon, the bike arrived at the weakest position Roger had previously identified. They just needed to pull out their guns and shatter the mirror surface, and they could get out. George, why can't you stay? Stay, and I can give you anything. Kamatodo, I still have family in New York. I'm not a fool like you who can easily abandon his own wife and children, George cursed loudly. It's one thing for you to be here, but why stop us from leaving? What the hell do you want, you fool? Maybe he really wants to do you, Roger muttered under his breath. He wouldn't find it strange regardless of what he did. Sorry, I am the god here. If I don't let you leave, no one can. I have a bad feeling about this, Roger muttered softly. Sure enough, after Roger fired a shot with an enchanted bullet to create a space-time gate, a tall figure slowly took shape, blocking the front of the gate. What the? Captain America. George widened his eyes, confirming he hadn't seen wrong. The Stars and Stripes bodysuit, the Star-Spangled Shield, and especially that iconic US perky butt, there was no doubt about it, it was him, it was definitely him. Looks like we're going to have a fight. George, I'll cover you in a moment, you go out first, Roger whispered. Then what about you? Can you make it out? I have my own ways. Just listen to me, and you'll be fine. Having said that, Roger immediately fired a shot at the captain, but he predicted it and blocked it with that Star-Spangled Shield. What surprised Roger was that the Hellfire on the bullet couldn't actually burn or melt his shield. This was absurd. Hellfire was the bane of all souls. This world was clearly created by a thought from Kamatodo's mind. Logically, a spiritual world should be combustible. Looking at this character who was just like Kakashi from the Japanese manga next door, Roger had a bit of a headache. The captain, known as the 5-5 split of the universe, could tie with anyone. He just didn't know how strong this created captain was. Roger picked up the Winchester 1887 shotgun and fired a few shots at the captain, but unfortunately, they were all blocked by the opponent's precise anticipation. Since firearms weren't working, he would go for melee. Roger tossed the shotgun onto the hell cycle and then pulled a katana from behind his butt and charged up. The captain was stunned by Roger's flashy maneuver. It was the first time he'd seen someone pull a weapon from behind their back. Although his body started fighting without needing conscious control, his eyes couldn't help but glance at Roger's butt. The katana slashed heavily onto the captain's shield, but the burning flames still couldn't melt the opponent's shield. After the captain blocked it, he raised his leg and kicked towards Roger, but Roger dodged it with a backflip. He wasn't an exorcist who didn't learn anything, he had learned a bit of mixed martial arts and combat. Although he hadn't reached the top tier, it was enough for daily missions. After all, his main enemies were those demons and devils, and fighting was useless against them. So, in his daily training, Roger focused mainly on his magic, especially the Ghost Rider. George, you go first, Roger shouted while fighting Captain America. George nodded and ran towards the space-time gate. At that moment, Captain America threw his shield, which landed right at George's feet. His mission was to stop the two from escaping. Good opportunity. Seeing that the opponent's shield had left his hand, Roger picked up the katana and rushed up, while simultaneously enchanting it. A katana wreathed in hellfire slashed towards Captain America's head with extreme speed. But the 5-5 split wasn't just a reputation. Captain America dodged the flaming katana and then kicked Roger in the stomach. Oh, that hurts, Roger's face twisted in pain. Because this time he didn't dodge. He took the hit head-on with his body and simultaneously grabbed Captain America's leg, preventing him from moving. George. Understood. Bang. George fired. A shot that never missed went straight for Captain America, and under the amplification of his fruit ability, it hit Captain America precisely. After being injured, Captain America's body noticeably paused, and Roger took the opportunity to look into his eyes. Look at me, Steve Rogers. Eye of Judgment activated. Captain America, of course, didn't know what the Eye of Judgment was. He just subconsciously met Roger's gaze and couldn't look away. Then, in an instant, his body rapidly turned into wisps of smoke and dissipated. The speed was so fast that even Roger was surprised. After Captain America turned into smoke, Roger looked thoughtfully at the shield he had left behind. Finally dealt with it, George wiped the sweat from his forehead. Hey, too soon, George. A voice came from the sky. It was Kamatodo. Kamatodo had two angel-like wings growing from his back and slowly descended. That's right, he had lifted the restrictions on himself. He would have plenty of time to play the virtual game later, but he couldn't let the two Junran immortal escape. After Kamatodo slowly landed, he looked at the place where Captain America had died, curled the corners of his mouth, and waved one hand. Then, there were more than a dozen Captain Americas on the scene, each holding a shield, possessing perfect large pectoral muscles and a perky butt. Roger. Looking at the dense crowd of Captain Americas at the scene, Roger felt a bit of a toothache. The key issue was that every single one of them carried a shield, and for some reason, his hellfire couldn't melt the things. He had no idea what was going on. George, run first. Roger suddenly pulled several grenades from his hand and threw them towards Kamatodo. The explosion of a dozen grenades was certainly no small matter. The captains immediately formed a shield wall to directly protect Kamatodo. But the cunning Roger hadn't just thrown explosive grenades, some of them had been spiked with extras, and what's more. The moment the dozen grenades were thrown, Roger directly amplified them, making each one the size of a basketball. If it hadn't been for the fear of accidentally blowing himself up at such close range, Roger could have amplified them to the size of cars. Boom, boom, boom. After a dozen explosions, there were flashbangs, smoke grenades, some even contained sleeping gas, and others had even been cursed by Roger. After the explosions, some Captain Americas began to wail, because while they had blocked the shrapnel, they couldn't block the smoke, and Roger had added all sorts of curses to it. There were curses that slowed movement, caused itching, induced corrosion, or alternated between hot and cold. Basically, Roger added every curse he could. It was standard practice for an exorcist, though ever since he became the Ghost Rider, he rarely used these little tricks. Looking at the scattered and battered Captain Americas, Roger once again pulled out his Arnold exclusive shotgun, the Winchester 1887 shotgun. Show yourself, little baby. Licking the corner of his mouth, Roger aimed the shotgun at the huddled group of Captain Americas and Kamatodo. Boom. Enchantment plus amplification. The enchantment was Hellfire, the Ghost Rider's exclusive flame, and the amplification was the fruit ability he had obtained from the mirror dimension. The small steel pellets spewing from the muzzle instantly became unimaginably huge, and after being enchanted, they turned directly into flaming steel balls. One shot took out a bunch. Hundreds of large fireballs flew towards Kamatodo and his Captain Americas. The powerful impact, combined with the dense hellfire, left them unable to defend both front and back. The flaw of the creator became apparent. Kamatodo only knew how to create, but he couldn't fight or use magic. At most, he could just hold a gun and take down a few criminals. Seeing that the Captain Americas he had created were so useless, Kamatodo trembled with rage. Just then, Roger's shotgun let out a click. The bullets in the gun were all spent. Kamatodo waved his hand, and all the injured Captain Americas dissipated into thin air. Then he looked at Roger with a cold sneer. Your bullets are all gone, right? You should know that this world was created by me. Even if you kill more Captain Americas, it's useless. Subsequently, Kamatodo waved his hand, and a dense crowd of Captain Americas appeared at the scene again. This time there were 10,000 of them. Kamatodo waved his hand again, and a metal door blocked the space-time gate, leaving Roger unable to escape. Attack, beat him up first, then capture him once he's crippled. Instantly, the 10,000 Captain Americas at the scene swarmed towards Roger, the first 100 directly surrounding him. Each Captain America's one-on-one combat skills could crush Roger, so with 100 of them. Boom! An explosion erupted from the center of the huddled crowd of Captain Americas, and Roger reverted to his complete form, the Ghost Rider who was a skeleton from head to toe. Ever since he started training his control, Roger rarely revealed his complete form. On one hand, the skull wasn't good looking, and he was afraid that if girls saw it, he wouldn't be able to get a date. On the other hand, Roger discovered that this saved more energy. Every time he fought, transforming into his final state was powerful, but his energy consumption was also fast, and he needed to harvest the souls of the guilty to replenish it after the battle. Otherwise, side effects would appear, a whispering voice that constantly tempted him to harvest the souls of the guilty. That kind of whispering was enough to drive a person insane, eventually reducing them to a tool for the Ghost Rider, becoming a madman who only knew how to harvest the souls of the guilty. After successfully learning complete control, Roger had become even more powerful, but because of this, he rarely revealed his final form. Now, he tried using his fruit ability to amplify it, and to his surprise, the effect was unexpectedly good. The originally small flaming skeleton directly turned into a fire demon. Although his body was still only 1.78 meters tall, the surrounding flames, reaching over 10 meters high, directly incinerated all the huddled Captain Americas nearby into ashes. This effect is not bad, it's a bit like Madara's Susanoo from Naruto. Roger gave Kamatodo a wicked smile. So, 10,000 Captain Americas are going to gang up on me. Now, I'm going to take on all 10,000 of you by myself. With the flaming Susanoo activated, he charged directly towards Kamatodo, who was being protected by the Captain Americas. Everywhere he passed, anyone who touched even a tiny bit of the flame was incinerated, and countless star shields fell down with a clatter like loot dropping from a game. A devil, he is a devil. Stop him, block him for me. Kamatodo's face turned pale with fear, and he roared loudly. Seeing those Captain Americas being incinerated, Kamatodo was terrified. It was his first time seeing such a situation. It was probably because in the real world, New York was too peaceful. He had only ever dealt with human criminals and had never seen a devil in his life. Seeing a flaming skull for the first time, although Roger's appearance, a talking skull was indeed a bit too terrifying, it was only natural that not just girls, but even men would be scared out of their wits. Kamatodo wanted to run. Cherishing his own life, he no longer thought about keeping the two human toys, but rather focused on saving his own skin first. He turned his head to fly away, but saw a motorcycle with flaming tires charging directly towards him. Kamatodo. Bang! What the hell was that? As he was sent flying, Kamatodo had only one question in his mind: why would an unmanned motorcycle start on its own and crash into him? But it was already too late. While flying in midair, before he could land, Kamatodo was firmly grasped by a large hand. Look at me. Before Kamatodo could react, he saw two eyes, or to be precise, two eye sockets in the skull. There were two small tufts of flame, very bright, brighter than the flames surrounding his own body, as if they were a sun, igniting his soul as well. Thud! Roger tossed the now mummified Kamatodo onto the ground. It's over. Even the Demon Kings from Hell didn't force me to use my 100% state, but you managed to do it. I am willing to call you. Roger looked up at the surrounding star shields, thought for a moment, and decided to give him a better title. The strongest Captain America boar. Even boars aren't as prolific at breeding as you. Tui. A small glob of fire-shaped spit was spat directly onto Kamatodo's body, igniting a raging fire that burned him into ashes. After Kamatodo died, everything around began to dissipate into thin air. Just like in Sally's world, all the Captain Americas he had created, whether dead or alive, turned into smoke and vanished completely. Roger put two fingers into his mouth. Phew phew. After the whistle, the Hell cycle automatically drove over and parked beside Roger. Good buddy, you cooperated really well. When we get back, I'll reward you with a bottle of the best motorcycle oil. George and the others must be waiting anxiously. Let's go back. Boom. With a roar, Roger rode the motorcycle into the space-time gate. Just as Roger stayed behind to cover their retreat, George had already left the magic mirror dimension one step ahead, arriving in the real world. After emerging, he looked at the magic mirror, still shaken. Sally, who was waiting nearby, noticed George's complexion was off and hurriedly stepped forward to ask. What, did you encounter danger, or did that guy from New York do this? Is he crazy? Sally's eyes widened in disbelief. Wasn't that man George's colleague? How could he hurt them? Power and strength are poison, a poison of desire. The diary your father left behind was right, this is a magic mirror that devours human desire. George looked at the magic mirror in front of him. It was covered with mysterious patterns. Looking closely, it was easy to get lost in the complex runes within. The dark wooden frame seemed to be coated with a layer of shiny paint, but upon closer inspection, it wasn't. Drink some water. I see you're covered in sweat. Sally brought over a glass of water. Thanks. George took the water and downed it in one gulp. He had been fleeing all day and was truly exhausted and thirsty. But now that Roger hadn't come out yet, he could only wait. Staying inside, not only would he be unable to help, but he would also need Roger to protect him. He had known before that Roger was an exorcist, but seeing Roger's magical methods, he knew he had underestimated his strength. Roger was more powerful than he had imagined. Roger is alone in there. He should be fine, right? Sally asked worriedly. It's fine. Roger is an exorcist. He's more powerful than you imagine. George said this for Sally, but also to comfort himself. After more than 10 minutes, the two were still sitting on the sofa waiting, glancing at the mirror from time to time. George, restless on the sofa, patted himself down, stood up, and said, I'm going out to buy a pack of cigarettes. If Roger comes out, give me a call. Okay, go ahead. George went out, went to the small supermarket outside the house, and bought 2 packs of cigarettes. After thinking about it, he also bought some food to bring back. When he returned to the house, he found there was an extra person inside, chatting happily with Sally. Roger, you're out. That's great. You didn't get hurt, did you? George was overjoyed, stepped forward, punched Roger on the shoulder, and then hugged him. I'm fine, buddy. A bunch of small fries aren't worth me getting hurt. Hee hee. Oh right, Sally, where were we talking? Roger pushed George away and turned to look at Sally. George noticed that Roger's eyes were a bit lecherous. Although Roger was always like that, he still felt something was not quite right. We were just talking about how you slaughtered everyone and escaped from the mirror while surrounded by thousands of Captain America. Oh, right. I killed thousands of Captain America by myself. You don't know, they were a sea of people. I sneered and used a single move. Before he could finish his sentence, a gun was pressed against his head. Don't move, put your hands up. Who are you? It turned out that for some reason, George had pulled out his gun and was pointing it at Roger's head, shouting with an ugly expression. Hey, George, what are you doing? I'm Roger. Are you crazy? Roger asked in surprise. George roared, I'm not crazy. The way you look at Sally isn't right. You're not Roger. Who the hell are you? Sally watched the scene before her, at a loss. Weren't the two friends? Why did he suddenly pull a gun? He is Mr. Roger. I watched him just walk out of the magic mirror. He is Roger, but his eyes aren't right. Haven't you noticed that when he looks at you, he's always particularly lecherous? Even if a person's body and appearance are the same, their eyes won't lie. But, Sally muttered softly, aren't all men like that? After speaking, she secretly looked at Roger. A handsome, young mixed-race guy looking at her with lecherous eyes, she didn't seem to find it very repulsive. George sneered, Roger, I'm asking you, what is that catchphrase you say when you go to a bar to drink? Which phrase at the bar? Roger scratched his head, thought hard for a long time, but still couldn't come up with it. Can you give me a hint? I say too many things. George sneered, high-end hunters often appear in the form of prey. This is Roger's catchphrase. He then pointed his gun at Sally, Roger isn't this forward. You, on the other hand, are like a starved ghost who hasn't touched a woman in 3 years. So, you're not Roger. Where did you come from? Wait. George suddenly thought of something. He widened his eyes, looked at the mirror, then looked at the Roger in front of him. He seemed to know where he came from. As expected of a police officer, your intuition is truly sharp. You noticed something was off from just a slight change in expression. Roger, who was being pointed at with a gun, was not panicked at all. Instead, he stood up slowly. So what do you plan to do? Kill me. I am Roger now. The Roger who came out of the magic mirror said with a smile. Hey, buddy, I'm not as low level as those other people. You can completely treat me as him. George stared fixedly at the Roger who came out of the mirror and asked the question he wanted to know. I don't understand. Doesn't the diary say that one has to sever ties with reality, or stay for many days before another person appears? Why did you emerge when we hadn't even been in there for a day? Roger picked his ear indifferently and said, I'd like to know that, too. Perhaps it's because I'm too powerful, so I was born faster. Alright, I'm leaving. What are you going to do now? Shoot me to death. You can't leave. Go back into the mirror, or I'll shoot. George gritted his teeth, racked the slide, and chambered around. I think you've forgotten one thing. Although I have the same memories as him, to me, you are just a stranger. As soon as he finished speaking, Roger transformed. Black smoke and fire continuously erupted from his body, and his head instantly turned into a skull with flowing, flaming hair. Bang! George fired without hesitation, hitting the opponent, but the skull rushed forward and knocked George flying with a punch. After being knocked flying, George crashed directly into a wooden shelf and collapsed, unable to get up. He didn't know how many bones he had broken. Ah! Seeing this terrifying scene, Sally clenched her fists and kept screaming in shock. So noisy, woman. The skull covered its ears with a look of helplessness, though it seemed it didn't have any ears. Then, it picked up the pistol that George had dropped on the floor, aimed it at Sally, and fired. Bang! The whole world is finally quiet. That's why they say, when there are no women in your heart, your aim with a gun is naturally divine. The skull looked at Sally, who had fallen into a pool of blood, with satisfaction. It picked up Sally's car keys, reverted to human form, and walked out. It was going to go enjoy the colorful world. What the? Why can't I get out? Roger kicked the thin glass door in front of him with all his might. What's going on? Why can't I get out? Roger kicked the transparent glass-like space-time gate again. It didn't make sense. He'd only been in there for less than a day. How could this happen? Was it a malfunction caused by those missing runes on the magic mirror? He couldn't just sit and wait for death. Roger didn't know any space-time magic. If he couldn't get out, he'd be stuck here for the rest of his life, forced to play God and run a harem game. Pulling out his Winchester 1887 shotgun, he activated his fruit ability's amplification and fired a shot at the space-time gate. Remember this site's domain. Taiwan Novel Network, your boredom cure, K Alpha, C Sigma, super practical. Boom! A massive spark accompanied the impact as it hit the space-time gate. No cracks appeared, but the keen-eyed Roger noticed the gate wobble for a moment. There's a chance. Then let's go big. Licking his lips, Roger activated Hellfire to enchant the shotgun. Instantly, a flaming, magical gun appeared in his hand. Hellfire enchantment plus devil fruit amplification, fire. Bang, bang, bang. After 3 shots, cracks appeared on the transparent space-time gate. He could see those cracks were repairing themselves at an extremely fast speed. Phew, Roger let out a whistle. Buddy, let's change forms and charge through. After mounting his hell cycle, the front of the bike began to transform, extending into a sharp, pointed tip. He backed up a certain distance, revved the throttle, and extended the 2 exhaust pipes at the rear, letting the flames erupt to their maximum. Charge. For freedom. The hell cycle sped forward with the velocity of a fighter jet, finally crashing precisely into the glass space-time gate, shattering it to pieces as he left that dimension. The real world. George struggled to get up, crawling with difficulty to Sally's side to check on her, then endured the sharp pain to crawl into the kitchen to find the first aid kit. Crawling out step by step, he grabbed the hemostatic medicine to help Sally stop the bleeding. He truly lacked the strength to wrap her bandages and could only lie on the floor, gasping for air. He remembered he should call the police, but when he pulled out his phone, he found it was dead. He hadn't charged it once since arriving in this town. Fuming with rage, George smashed the phone directly onto the floor. He didn't know how many ribs he'd broken, but he really couldn't move anymore. He could only hope a neighbor had heard the gunshots. That way, someone might call for help, and maybe Sally and he would still have a chance. What he didn't know was that the town was remote with few people, and Sally's house had very few neighbors nearby. No one had heard the gunshots at all. Huff, huff. Every breath was as difficult as if fire had entered his lungs. Just then, the sound of shattering glass rang out. Roger crashed through the space-time gate from the magic mirror and came to a steady stop in the living room. What happened? Is there an enemy? Why are you both injured? Roger hopped off the bike and rushed to George's side to ask. George pointed weakly at the mirror and said, "Another you walked out of the mirror. He's the one who caused our injuries." Me. Roger looked at the mirror in surprise. He'd been inside for less than a day, and another version of himself had already been born. And wasn't it only when one severed their ties to reality that another person would emerge from the mirror due to the principle of equivalent exchange? Forget it, now's not the time to think about that. I'll find a way to heal your injuries. Roger helped George sit up against the sofa. I'm fine, just a few broken bones. Find a way to save Sally first, or call an ambulance. She's dying. George pointed feebly at Sally on the floor. Sally lay on the ground, her breath as thin as a thread, exhaling more than she inhaled. Oh, sorry. Roger checked Sally. She'd been hit in the organs by a bullet and was hemorrhaging. Even if sent to the hospital for emergency surgery, the chances were slim. It looked like he'd have to use unconventional means. Roger blinked, thinking of a long-forgotten great demon who was like a divine physician. The first fallen, Pazuzu. Immediately having an idea, he pulled out his cheat, bought a character skin, molded it into Kang's appearance, and equipped it. Then he took out a small knife, cut Sally's hand, then cut his own palm, pressing the wounds of both hands together. Roger closed his eyes and began chanting an incantation, "In the name of the Archmage John Constantine, the oath shall endure." He then produced a piece of parchment, placed it on the floor, drew a hexagram with salt around it, set the candles in place, and finally chanted another incantation in Latin. O mysterious being from a distant land, adorer of life, manipulator of desire, craver of endless wealth, devil who controls the human heart. I bear witness to you with my life, I sacrifice to you with my soul, I guide you with my own blood. With the covenant established in ancient times as our bond. I, John Constantine, terminate all defenses and protections. Hear your summons, demon, submit quickly. I summon you to manifest in the mortal world. As the candles began to flicker wildly without any wind, Roger's eyes turned white, and his head tilted back for a good while. A wave of invisible black mist began to gather around his body. Then, through the blood oath, it slowly healed the wounds on Sally's body, pushing the bullet directly out of her. After a while, the treatment was complete, the candles extinguished, and a demonic rune appeared on Roger's hand. This was demonic script, also a mark, functioning like a set of coordinates. I'm okay. Incredible. Wasn't I just shot? Wait, who are you? Sally looked at the man holding her hand in astonishment. That's R.O. He's using magic. He just used magic to save you, George's voice came from the side. He had watched from beginning to end. While he was shocked by Roger's supernatural magic, he was also puzzled, why did he change his appearance to cast the spell? Cough, cough, it's me. Roger coughed and reluctantly let go of Sally's small hand. A bit rough, but the feel wasn't bad. He wiped his face, unequipped the character skin, and returned to his original appearance. Checking his arm, the demonic rune had indeed disappeared. You'd better forget what just happened and never mention a word of it. Otherwise, if the devil's here, they'll come to collect the debt. Collect a debt? You borrowed a devil's power for that spell. Aren't you an exorcist? Why are you borrowing power from devils? George was greatly shocked. This style was all wrong. Roger wasn't some kind of black wizard, was he? Roger put his hand to his chin and cleared his throat. Ahem, don't put it like that. Those devils spend all day in the mortal world acting like loan sharks. If I don't fleece them a little, they won't know how harsh the world can be. Then why did you use the name John Constantine? That guy is a scumbag who owes the devils a lot of debts. With so many debts, he won't worry about one more. Quote. George couldn't get past that mental hurdle, and in the end, he rejected Roger's demonic treatment method. In the end, they had no choice but to take George to the hospital, and Sally stayed behind to look after him. After Roger returned to Sally's house, his first thought was to destroy the magic mirror. However, after hesitating for a long time, he just couldn't bring himself to do it. After all, this was the crystallization of a senior in the exorcism world, a treasure created with untold hardship, and perhaps the only one in the world. Sigh. He let out a long sigh. Better put it away, it might be useful in the future. After putting away the magic mirror, Roger went out to find out where that imposter had gone. Was his negative personality really that ruthless? George was one thing, since he was a man, but to actually shoot such a beautiful woman like Sally, tisk, tisk. After searching around, he found the old acquaintance he had breakfast with that day, the fat police officer. He hadn't seen him for 2 days. Oh, wait, it was 1 day, and the guy seemed to have gained another layer of fat, still devouring a hot dog with milk tea. Hey, officer, hello. May I ask, did you see someone who looks like me leaving the town? He had intended to call the other guy by his name, but unfortunately, Roger embarrassingly realized that he really couldn't remember what he was called, he only remembered his physique. Oh, it's you. What do you mean by that? I don't quite understand. The fat man didn't care at all what Roger called him, but he remembered this handsome guy who had given him some extra cash the day before quite clearly. It's like this. Someone who looks very much like me stole my friend's car. The license plate number is 4X. Not only did he steal the car, but he also injured my friend George. Oh, George is also a police officer from New York, and he is currently at the hospital. I see. Let me ask, which hospital is your friend at? Do you want to report the crime? Yes, of course, but I have to tell you first, although he looks a lot like me, it is not me. I hope you guys won't make a mistake. Don't worry, once I finish this hot dog, I'll go with you to the hospital to see your injured friend and take a statement. That would be greatly appreciated. I'll go wait for you at the hospital. After saying this, Roger considerately handed him another cigarette. The fat police officer's eyes lit up. He nimbly took the cigarette and, in the process, slipped 2 green banknotes into his pocket. Roger smiled at him, nodded, and left. What's the fastest way to find someone? Obviously, why not use the ready-made tools available? The police system is the fastest tool in this country. Of course, using magic would also work, but according to Sally and George's description, the other person possesses the same memories as him, which means the other person should know all of his methods. However, one thing is certain, the other person doesn't have his cheat code, otherwise, he wouldn't have taken Sally's car. No game system, no storage space gifted by the game system, this is where he differs from him. Perhaps he doesn't even have memories of his past life, only copying the memories of this lifetime. The other person must be full of confusion too, wondering why he has a spatial magic to store things, yet it isn't magic in his memories. He actually came out. How is this possible? Mirror Roger was hiding in a cave. The reason he was hiding in the cave was that he discovered his bond with the real world was becoming thinner and thinner, and his shadow was becoming fainter, almost to the point of disappearing. Unlike the real world, he knew that if they severed their bond with this world and returned to the dimension inside the magic mirror, they would return to dust, and everything would cease to exist. That was why Mirror Roger was so terrified. In the end, he hid in the cave where the sun could not shine because Mirror Roger had discovered something. Ghost Rider could ignore the bond between himself and reality. In other words, Mirror Roger in his human body would turn back into a shadow and return to the mirror, but Ghost Rider would not. So he could only temporarily transform into Ghost Rider and hide in a cave where the sun could not reach to figure out a solution. The consumption of Ghost Rider is immense, even without fighting, it drains power every single moment. It seems that when night falls, I'll have to find a place with many sinful souls to harvest some souls, Mirror Roger muttered to himself. It was impossible for him to give up resisting and obediently return to the world of the magic mirror dimension. A fake is always a fake. All the delicacies inside, in his view, didn't taste as good as the wild vegetables and tree bark in reality. No matter how beautiful the women inside were, they couldn't compare to a sow in reality. Ahem, I digress. However, Mirror Roger knew from his memories that this world was unfathomable, the water was very deep, and there were many hidden big shots. If he were to harvest souls without any restraint, he would sooner or later provoke the big shots hiding in the water. Only by keeping a low profile while fighting monsters and developing sneakily could he live longer. Why don't I have Roger's cheat code? Mirror Roger angrily punched the wall of the cave, leaving a deep pit. Because in his memories, he saw that Roger seemed to have a cheat code, though he didn't know what it was. The game system interface that Roger saw was a mosaic in Mirror Roger's memories, as if it had been blocked by something. Since he didn't have the same cheat code, he could only find another way. Mirror Roger closed his eyes and carefully recalled the vast memories about how to fleece the devil, looking for any method he could use. Live his whole life as Ghost Rider. How is that possible? How would he eat delicious food, drink fine wine, and what about beautiful women? On the other side, after treatment, George decided to set off for home to recuperate. He had broken bones and needed a long rest, and hospital fees were not cheap. Seeing George bandaged up like a rice dumpling, Roger kindly advised, "George, are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Demonic treatment for injuries is very fast. Forget it, I'm not going to die. I'll recover after 2 months of rest." "Alright, then you just rest well in the car. Sally and I will do the driving." Sally's car had been snatched by Mirror Roger, so naturally, they would go back together in their car. Roger just needed to wait patiently for news. After all, the police system was quite capable of finding people. After getting settled, Roger stepped on the gas and drove onto the road, with the destination naturally being back to New York. "Roger, did you destroy that mirror?" George suddenly remembered that magic mirror. "Don't worry, I have already sealed it away. No one will come into contact with that magic mirror ever again." After saying this, Roger looked at Sally, feeling that taking someone else's item like this was perhaps not quite right. Sally seemed to see what Roger wanted to say and smiled. "I originally intended to destroy that mirror according to my father's will. Since it is safer in your hands, I will give it to you. I only hope that it won't appear again to harm others." What an understanding woman. After returning, I must compensate her in other ways. Taking advantage of a lady is not Roger's habit. On Route 9, Roger glanced at the road sign beside him. They had been driving away from Sally's grandfather's house for several hours now. The car was now on the road to New York. There were farms on both sides of the road, and the crops were growing quite well. It seemed the land here was very fertile. Sigh tilde, what a pity. Roger sighed, driving listlessly. What's a pity? George, who was tied up like a dumpling, couldn't help but ask. Didn't you notice? The superpower from the fruit we ate inside the magic mirror is gone. After Roger exited the magic mirror dimension, he realized the ability was gone. Because George was an ordinary person who didn't know how to control it and hadn't practiced, he probably didn't feel it as clearly. But Roger was different. He trained hard every day, and his control over power was much more refined than George's. The enhancement ability was still there, but it was blocked by a space-time gate, making it unusable. It was as if some inexplicable rule was restricting it, and unless he could break that formless and intangible rule, it would remain inaccessible. Thinking of this, Roger couldn't help but curse inwardly. If he could break through space and rules, he wouldn't need the ability from this fruit at all. Unless, equivalent exchange. This was the only solution he could think of, but how to exchange? He wasn't a space-time type mage and had absolutely no knowledge of such things. Devils had a vast array of mature spells, and this magic mirror probably didn't have a second one in the entire world. It is a bit of a pity. It would be great if that ability were still here, like a marksman hitting the bullseye every time. But if it's gone, there's nothing we can do. You don't have to be so depressed, do you? Sigh tilde, you don't understand how important that ability is. Enhancement. It increases. Suddenly realizing there was a woman next to him, Roger felt it wasn't appropriate to say this and quickly shut his mouth. What are you talking about? Is it something brought out from the magic mirror? Sally asked. She had probably guessed that the two were talking about something from the magic mirror. Yes, exactly this. Roger casually pulled an incredibly ugly fruit out of the system's storage space. Because time in the storage space was frozen, which was probably a bug, Roger had managed to glitch the fruit out. The moment he took it out, as expected, the fruit immediately withered as if it had been weathered for 10,000 years, then turned into a wisp of smoke and vanished completely. Seeing this, Sally laughed. It's like that. I took out a lot of gold from inside before, but it disappeared as soon as I left. Otherwise, I would have been back in New York long ago. Sigh. Roger let out a despairing sigh. Oh, Sally, you have no idea how important that enhancement ability is to a man. If it were still here, I could have done amazing things with it. Roger, it looks like someone needs a ride up ahead. Roger looked up and saw a man and a woman ahead, hitchhiking with their thumbs up on this desolate road. A thumb up meant they wanted a ride. A bit eerie. A truck stopped in front of Roger and the others beside the man and woman. The window rolled down, and a truck driver smiled and said to them, Hey, want a ride? Only you, not that guy. The man and woman looked at each other, and the man immediately felt a bit awkward. However, in the wilderness, the danger of picking up a man is far greater than a woman, because a woman's natural strength cannot compete with a man's, making the driver feel more at ease. This man, or rather, boy, would be a more appropriate term, because his face was very youthful, just like a college student. The only difference was his height. He was nearly 1.9 meters tall and looked quite imposing. No wonder the truck driver didn't dare to take him. It's okay, you go ahead then. I'll wait a bit longer. Screech. A car following behind the truck pulled over. The window rolled down, revealing a handsome mixed-race face. It was Roger. Hey, kid, want a ride? Only you, not that short-haired girl. Girl, boy, truck driver. In the end, the man and woman parted ways, one getting into the truck and the other into Roger's car. Kid, you two didn't know each other? George couldn't help but ask. Ah, I just met her this morning, also on the road. By the way, thank you. My name is Sam. May I ask what your names are? The boy with the youthful face smiled shyly. I'm Roger, and those are George and Sally. You just said your name is Sam. What's your last name? The shy boy smiled. My last name is Winchester, Sam Winchester. The name sounded ominous, Roger thought to himself. Do you have an older brother? A brother named Dean. Hearing Roger say his brother's name, the tall boy Sam couldn't help but be surprised. He quietly placed his hand on his backpack because, in his impression, they didn't seem to know Roger. You know my brother. George noticed his small movement and said, I'm a police officer, a New York police officer. Don't worry, kid. Roger, do you know them? Roger curled his lips. I know them. The Wolong and Fengchu brothers, they go around exercising everywhere for free. They are famous in the exorcist world. This time it was Sam's turn to be surprised. Sir, are you an exorcist too? Yes, but I'm an exorcist different from you two. How are you different? I charge money. Quote. Ha ha ha. Sally, who was on the side, couldn't help but laugh. George was also amused by their conversation. That's amazing, to be an exorcist at such a young age. By the way, Roger, why didn't you let that girl get in the car earlier? I thought you would let the girl hitch a ride. If she's alone with that driver and he has bad intentions, it would be trouble. If George didn't know Roger, he would have gotten out of the car to show his police badge. In the middle of nowhere, with a young girl following a strange driver, if the other party had malicious intent, the girl would be done for. You've got the wrong person. The one to worry about is the truck driver. What? Sam asked, not understanding. This time it was Roger's turn to look at Sam with a surprised expression. You can't tell. That girl is a black mage. A black mage. The other three in the car were shocked. That young, pretty girl who looked harmless was actually a black mage. Wow, it seems you really didn't know. So, the reason you survived wasn't because of that powerful strength you possess, but because you conquered the other party with your looks, Roger teased. Strength? You say I have a powerful strength in me. How come I can't feel it? Sam asked, surprised. He had never felt any different from an ordinary person his whole life. Oh, you didn't know. Then what do you use for exorcisms? Don't tell me it's just that filthy holy water, Roger asked in surprise. Sam was momentarily speechless. They really did just use those things. Salt chunks were used the most because, for demons, salt can only repel them and cannot kill them. As for why demons fear salt that can't kill them, no one knows. The Winchester brothers were quite the pair. They used rock salt instead of bullets and then fired them from guns. They usually found the true form of those vengeful spirits, sprinkled salt and gasoline, perhaps added some holy water, and then burning the spirit would solve the problem. Hearing Sam say all this, Roger asked curiously, what about those ghostly things that can turn invisible? What do you do if you can't see them? We generally find its remains, sprinkle salt, then use holy water and gasoline to burn it. What a hassle, having to carry gasoline. If it were him, he could settle it just by knowing the target's true name. He could just spit a glob of fiery phlegm at them, and those vengeful spirits and demons would be burned to death. Seeing Roger silent, Sam couldn't help but ask a question he had been wondering about. Sir, are you also an exorcist? And you just said there's a powerful force within me, can you tell me what it is? I've never felt it. Seeing the boy's sincere attitude, Roger nodded and told him, I smelled it the moment you got in the car. There's a thick scent of sulfur in your blood, you have demon blood in your body. Sam immediately retorted, that's impossible. I'm a real human, how could there be demon blood in my body? Roger rolled his eyes. I'm human too, yet I have a ghost rider inside me. Why do you care so much about bloodlines? If you have power, just use it. But, having demon blood in your body doesn't mean you're the child of a demon, nor does it mean your mother cheated. It's like getting a blood transfusion at a hospital, understand? Hearing Roger's explanation, Sam breathed a sigh of relief, clearly comforted by the thought that he was his parents' biological son. George asked curiously, are you saying that a demon blood transfusion gives you demonic powers? Roger said solemnly, no, it'll kill you. George. Sam. Then why me? Roger waved his hand. I don't know. Maybe you have a 1 in a million constitution, so a demon is lusting after your body. With so many people in the world, there are always some with very special constitutions, including souls, that can attract a demon's favor. Including a guy named Kong, whose soul is fought over by both heaven and hell. Diamond suit, diamond suit. Along the way, the four of them chatted as they drove. It was soon evening, and Roger parked the car in front of a motel where the group planned to spend the night. By the way, Mr. Roger, you said that Girl Meg is a black mage. Can you explain more about black mages? Sam asked curiously. Unlike his brother, he had been well protected and was even in college, while his brother Dean had always followed their father to perform exorcisms. So he only had a superficial understanding of many things in the underworld, and the same went for Dean. Tisk tisk, Roger felt a bit sorry for these two brothers. They clearly had 1 in a million talent, yet they could only use ordinary means to perform exorcisms, even frequently turning to their father's diary at the last minute. Not necessarily a black mage, she could be a witch. Just think of them as a group of people who like to borrow power from devils and demons. If that truck driver doesn't have any bad intentions, he'll be fine. But if he does, he's in for some bad luck. Roger gloated. For someone intending to do something untoward to a witch or a black mage, death would be a mercy compared to being kept in a state where they could neither live nor die. Since you knew that girl was so dangerous, why didn't you stop her then? What if something happens to that driver? George said with dissatisfaction. Why stop her? As long as that driver doesn't have any wicked thoughts toward her, nothing will happen. Look, Sam was with that woman for so long, did she hurt him? Roger said, still cheerful and heartless. George was momentarily speechless. Roger was no saint, nor was he a particularly good person. If he went and attacked every witch or black mage he saw, he'd be a madman. Those who use black magic aren't necessarily bad people, and those who use white magic aren't necessarily good. Didn't the big boss of Kamar Taj, the Ancient One, use black magic? Besides, she was with Sam on the road for so long and didn't hurt him, so why should he meddle in other people's business? Relax, not everyone who uses black magic is a homicidal maniac. Maybe she'll just give that driver a little lesson and let him go. You have to believe that one's appearance is a reflection of their heart. Most good-looking people are good people, like me. Roger pointed at himself. Your heart is pitch black, you're not a good person at all, George couldn't help but complain. Ha 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 ha, then I'm not. Good people don't live long, while villains live for 1,000 years, hee hee. Just then, Sally, who had gone into the motel, came back out. Everyone, good news. There are enough rooms inside, and the price is fair. I've already booked 4 rooms with the owner. Let's go in. With Sally's help, George walked into the motel step by step. After all, his body was still in its prime, so he recovered quickly. Roger followed behind the two, ready to go in, but he saw Sam standing by the car looking worried, making phone calls repeatedly. What's wrong, Sam? Why are you just standing there? Sam looked up and said to Roger, Mr. Roger, I haven't been able to get through to my brother's phone, I haven't been able to contact him for 4 hours. I'm worried something happened to him. Roger asked, could his phone be dead? Sam shook his head. His brother wouldn't make such a basic mistake, especially when the two brothers were apart. No, my brother would never make that kind of mistake, especially while on an exorcism. I'm worried he's met with an accident. Roger paused. Exercising. Then there was no doubt. Something must have happened. After thinking about it, Roger decided not to be snarky and tell him to drop the "I'm worried" part, and instead said, "Do you want to go find him?" "Yes, I want to borrow your car to go back to Buxwell Town and check, because that's where he went this time." Buxwell Town. Wasn't that the town they passed through this morning? Sure, okay. The car belongs to George, so I'll let him know and then accompany you on the trip. Roger remembered that the Winchester brothers had protagonist armor and couldn't die no matter how much they were put through, but that was TV. In the real world, any kind of accident could happen. "Thank you, Mr. Roger," Sam said gratefully. "You're welcome. I'm charging a fee." When they returned here, it was already late, and the sun had set. Along the way, Sam had driven the car at nearly 200 miles per hour. Fortunately, this state was sparsely populated, so there wasn't much traffic on the road at night. Upon arriving at Buxwell Town, Sam was a bit bewildered because the town wasn't exactly big, but it wasn't small either, and he had no idea where to start looking. Calm down, calm down. I remember that the urban legend of this town involves a sacred tree." Sam started rummaging through his bag, looking for some information they had collected earlier. Roger rolled his dead fish eyes, feeling that every time one of these two brothers got kidnapped and the other managed to find them precisely, it was purely due to luck. Roger got out of the car, walked straight to the nearby farm, took out a small stove, started making gestures, and then began muttering an incantation. When it came to finding people, magic was quite practical. "Sacred Mother Earth, Mother of the upper realm, please guide me. Reveal the demon hiding here." After Roger finished speaking, a wisp of black smoke began to drift from the stove and then slowly floated in one direction. Roger waved at Sam. "Let's go, energetic lad." Sam quickly packed his bag and followed, curiously watching the wisp of smoke floating in the air, guiding the way. "Mr. Roger, what kind of magic is this? What language were you just speaking?" "This is Enochian, the language of the angel. This is a magic that uses the spirits of the earth to find people, though it's specifically for finding demons, evil spirits, and the like." "Then my brother, once the evil spirit is eliminated, your brother will naturally be found." In the pitch-black forest, two people were tied up, a man and a woman. One of them was Sam's brother, Dean. As it turned out, the crops in this town had enjoyed favorable weather and bumper harvests every year for the past half-century. Conversely, people died in accidents every year, and without fail, it was always a man and a woman, which prompted the arrival of the Winchester brothers. Just today, Dean had investigated and discovered that it was likely a sacrifice. Every year, as long as a young man and woman were sacrificed to the evil spirit here, that is, the scarecrow, the crops would have a bumper harvest, regardless of drought or flood. So, after failing to warn a couple of out-of-towners, Dean simply took out his rock-salt shotgun, repelled the scarecrow, and saved the couple. The result was that he was caught by the angry townspeople the next day and treated as a sacrifice. The girl next to him was even more unlucky. Her parents had died in a sacrifice, and she had been adopted by her aunt for over a decade without knowing it. Because time was tight, they had taken her as a substitute. She looked at her aunt with tears in her eyes, unable to understand what had happened to her relatives that they would suddenly want to sacrifice her to an evil spirit. "So you're saying you had no idea about any of this?" Dean asked the girl. "I don't know. No one has ever told me." The girl's eyes were dull and lifeless. She didn't even know about the scarecrow evil spirit until she heard it from Dean, showing that she had been raised as a sacrifice all along. Sigh, "I hope Sam can get here in time to save me." "Who is Sam?" "He's my brother. He knows I'm here hunting, and if he can't reach me for a few hours, he'll know something happened to me and should come looking for me." "Let's hope so." Perhaps the trauma of being tied up by her own aunt as a sacrifice was too great. The girl seemed somewhat despondent. Slowly, the wind began to pick up. In the forest at night, besides the bites of various mosquitoes and insects, there were all sorts of miscellaneous insect noises. But at this moment, what was hair-raising wasn't that the insect sounds were strange, but that all those sounds had stopped. Can you imagine what it's like in a forest when all the insects stop chirping? It was as if they had sensed the arrival of some unknown, great terror. These insects dared not make a sound. It was the instinct of animals to sense natural hazards before they arrived. "I think we're in trouble," Dean muttered. In front of them, under the moonlight, a dark shadow was walking over step by step. The light was too dim to see clearly, but Dean saw one of its hands. It was a hook. "Geez, what is that?" the girl whispered. Slowly, the dark shadow came closer. It was indeed a scarecrow, covered in tattered clothes, wearing a mask, and straw was visible everywhere through the holes in its clothing. It held a scythe in one hand and had a hook in the other, slowly walking toward Dean and the girl. Watching the scarecrow get closer and closer, the girl was terrified and screamed shrilly, while Dean, on the side, was making a final struggle, pulling hard on the ropes binding him. Unfortunately, the ropes were very thick and could not be broken by human strength. The scarecrow walked up to Dean, raised its hook directly, and thrust it hard toward his head. "It's over, I'm done for." Dean watched in despair as the hook was about to pierce his head. Just a millisecond before the hook was about to blow his brains out, a loud bang came from the side. Bang, the loud roar of a shotgun, the impact hitting the scarecrow's hook precisely, deflecting its attack and saving Dean. Two figures ran out from the shadows. One was his brother Sam, and he didn't recognize the other one. Sam was firing his shotgun at the scarecrow, shot after shot. Theoretically, shooting a pile of straw should have scattered it, but evil spirits were just unreasonable. No matter how much he shot, it wouldn't fall apart. "Idiot, to fight a scarecrow, you need to use fire." Roger picked up a cigarette, lit it, and took a satisfying puff. Then he flicked it, tossing the cigarette onto the scarecrow. Sizzle, as if it were truly dry hay meeting fire, the scarecrow ignited instantly, and it burned quite vigorously. The scarecrow tried to run away, but after taking 2 steps forward, its entire body was engulfed in flames. Finally, it fell to the ground, unwilling to accept its fate, and turned into ashes, leaving only an iron hook on the ground. Dean, who had just been untied, and his brother Sam, both stared in disbelief, especially Dean. Yesterday, when he saved that couple, he had fired countless shots with his shotgun and couldn't kill it, only managing to slow its movements. Now, someone had solved it with a single cigarette. This made him doubt his life. Was his method of exorcism wrong? "Is it dead?" Sam walked up and took a look. "Not necessarily. It might not be dead." Roger picked up the iron hook from the ground and wiped it with a tissue. These items dropped by evil spirits were precious materials in the dark world and could be sold for money. "Right, this gentleman is correct. That scarecrow might not be dead." Dean then began to explain the reason for his certainty, because the source of the local legend was a sacred tree. He had to find that tree and burn it to have any chance of ending everything. Enochian, the language of the angel in U.S. TV shows, and Latin, these two are usually used for casting spells. The sacred tree, this town's tradition, is also the source of the myth. For half a century, various accidents here have caused farm yields to drop. Later, guided by a wizard from who knows where, the local residents began to worship the sacred tree, choosing a pair of man and woman as sacrifices every year. Since then, they have had a bountiful harvest every year. "So what we need to find is that sacred tree, and then burn it, right?" Roger asked. "Correct, this is what I found. Let's go, the sacred tree should be in this direction." Dean took the lead. Behind him were Sam and the girl who had been rescued. In the pitch-black forest, the eerie evil scarecrow made her look like a frightened little deer, following behind the group. The 4 of them walked through the darkness. Fortunately, Dean had been here during the day. This energetic guy didn't have other abilities, but his memory and analytical skills were excellent. "It should be ahead. That largest tree is the sacred tree they mentioned. The scarecrow is just the guardian of the farm. The sacred tree is the evil spirit they worship." Looking at Dean walking in front, for some reason, Roger had an ominous premonition. Because just now, after he added a trace of hellfire to his cigarette to burn the scarecrow, he felt that he didn't harvest much sin power. In other words, that immortal scarecrow might just be a clone, and the sacred tree that Dean intended to burn was the real boss. "Sorry, we cannot let you pass to harm the sacred tree." In the darkness, several old men holding guns walked out slowly. Everyone held a gun. These people were the town's capitalists and farm owners. The man and woman sacrificed to the scarecrow every year were arranged by them. Just 2 lives could ensure a bountiful harvest for them every year. The greed of capital had seeped into their very bones, which is why they took such risks. However, later on, they gradually changed their methods. For example, the couple from yesterday, they just tampered with their car, and it stalled halfway through. Since it was night, the evil scarecrow would naturally come out to claim their lives. If it weren't for Dean driving by and saving them, the sacrifice would have been completed. "Put down the guns, children. I don't want to hurt you. One of the old men said. Aunt, why are you doing this? The girl who had been tied up as a sacrifice looked at one of the old women sadly. Don't shoot, we'll listen to you. Sam raised his hands and slowly followed the other party's instructions to put down his gun, as did Dean. In this country, when someone points a gun at you, you must be obedient, because the other party might actually send you a peanut. What now, Mr. Roger? Sam asked Roger in a low voice, because Roger was an exorcist and considered a senior, so he hoped he had some special methods. Roger could transform, and after transforming, he wouldn't fear bullets, but Dean and the others would be done for. Just call me Brother Gia. Do as they say, reinforcements are here. Reinforcements, I don't know when, but the pupils of Roger's eyes were no longer black, but presented a faint yellow color, the color of fire. This was the precise control Roger had achieved after long-term training, transforming only part of his Ghost Rider abilities. First, it saved energy. Second, it allowed for daily use without having to turn into a terrifying skull every time he needed to exorcise. With the Eye of Judgment, even without fully transforming, using a part of his vision capabilities allowed him to see those evil spirits and such. In Roger's eyes, behind the several farm owners, dense numbers of scarecrows were walking over, and they were even constantly increasing. And on a farm not far away, some withered straw was slowly turning into individual scarecrows under the power of an invisible black fog. Roger said, "You had better look behind you. The god you worship is walking over." Hearing Roger say this, those armed farm owners felt a bit terrified, because they didn't know when the surrounding insects and birds had all stopped making noise. Wherever the evil spirit went, living things stopped making sounds, the surroundings were completely silent. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Slowly, a rustling sound came. The faces of several farm owners changed because this sound was a bit like the friction of straw. 7 or 8 old men held their guns, looking around uneasily, because the sound was getting closer and closer. Finally, the flashlight of one of the old men shone on one. It was a scarecrow, and there were many more following behind it. Scarecrow. One of the farm owner's teeth began to chatter uncontrollably, and his body trembled. Although they had long known about this evil spirit they worshipped, seeing it for real, they couldn't help but feel afraid. The scarecrows didn't care whether these farm owners were the people who fed them. They walked over, raised their hooks, and began the slaughter. Bang! One of the farm owners couldn't help but fire, and this seemed to be a trigger. The others followed suit and opened fire as well. The scarecrows that were hit had parts of their straw blown away, revealing the bones wrapped inside the straw, the human bones left behind after those sacrificed died. Immediately, dense gunfire rang out. These farm owners, who loved to sacrifice humans to the scarecrows, were no longer respectful to the evil spirit they worshipped. However, these scarecrows were not afraid of human firearms at all. The powerful kinetic energy bullets could only stop them or make them fall, and the next second, they would immediately climb back up. There is great fear between life and death. At this moment, they only thought about surviving. Finally, a clicking sound came from the chamber of one of the farm owner's guns, after the bullets were exhausted. A scarecrow walked straight up, inserted its hook into his neck, and then dragged him into the darkness like a piece of meat. A farm owner who had run out of bullets dropped his gun and ran in the direction they had come from. The others saw this and fled one after another, no longer thinking about catching Dean and the others to be sacrifices. In the end, only the 4 of them were left at the scene. Sam swallowed and picked up the rock-salt shotgun on the ground. "Mr. Roger, Brother Gia, what should we do now?" "Don't worry, the scarecrows are constantly increasing. Those people have already been surrounded and cannot escape." Dean stumbled and almost fell. "Who cares if those people live or die right now?" Sam was asking about them. "All right." Oh, you are asking about us. As long as we go over and cut down that sacred tree, it should be fine." "Dean, tell me where it is." "The sacred tree is right ahead," Dean shouted, pointing forward. "Leave it to me, protect yourselves." Roger took out his Arnold special shotgun, and the next second, it was enchanted with Hellfire. Bang! Roger fired a shot, and the fire met the straw. A large swath of scarecrows fell as if mowing grass, and every scarecrow ignited into a big fire. Bang! The shotgun kept spitting out sparks, clearing a large swath with every shot, just like mowing grass. I don't know if these scarecrows were too weak, or if the shotgun enchanted with Hellfire was just too effective against them, but either way, a single shot would take out a whole group and set them on fire. Sam looked at the rock-salt shotgun in his hands, then at the scarecrows he had hit. After falling, they would wobble a bit and then climb back up. Is the difference between guns really this big? Sam, use fire. Dean picked up a burning branch and swung it wildly at the incoming scarecrows. The scarecrows that were touched by it acted as if they had been doused in gasoline. The moment a spark hit them, they immediately began to burn. Then you guys hold them off, I'll be right back. Roger shouted, then ran toward the sacred tree. If he didn't run now, he feared being surrounded by the scarecrow army. He didn't know if the tree demon grandmother sensed the danger, but she was summoning scarecrows one after another as if they were free. By then, except for Roger who could transform, the other three would be done for. Running and shooting, he blasted a path forward. As Roger approached the sacred tree, which was the evil spirit tree demon grandmother, the invisible black mist surrounding him began to churn, growing thicker and thicker. Perhaps sensing that Hellfire was its nemesis, the sacred tree began to tremble all over. The scarecrows no longer moved at their previous leisurely pace but charged toward Roger at a rapid run. The first one grabbed Roger's arm in a suicidal move, the second grabbed his head, and the rest grabbed his waist, legs, and even. Hey, that's too much. Where are you grabbing? Roger lowered his head and glared at the kneeling scarecrow in front of him. If an uncle can tolerate it, an aunt cannot. Ghost Rider, transform. His skin began to crack, and thick smoke and flames spewed from the fissures. Roger, who had been piled into a large haystack, instantly set all the densely packed scarecrows on fire. After losing the minions blocking his path, Roger charged straight to the sacred tree, which was the tree demon grandmother. Then, he saw an unbelievable sight. Perhaps seeing that the minions she summoned couldn't stop this flame-wielding human, the tree demon grandmother actually pulled out her roots, intending to flee. A tree uprooted dies, a person moves and lives. This has been an unchanging truth since ancient times. However, the tree demon grandmother, who was worshipped as a god by the townspeople, clearly did not fall into this category. The opponent immediately extended a long branch, trying to whip Roger to death. Roger pulled out a katana, enchanted it with Hellfire, rushed up, and cut it off with one strike. Ah, what do I do if this tree demon has no eyes? He wanted to use the Eye of Judgment to harvest the sacred tree's soul, but discovered it had no eyes at all. Roger felt a bit of a headache. The Ghost Rider needs eyes to feed. Killing it directly with Hellfire wouldn't mean he couldn't harvest anything, but the amount would be too small. On the part of the trunk that Roger had struck, the Hellfire began to spread along its body, impossible to extinguish no matter how it tried. The opponent simply cut off its own trunk and, pulling up its roots, ran toward the forest behind. Running, can it be faster than a bullet? Bang! After a gunshot, Roger blew the smoke off the shotgun specially used by Arnold. This bullet had an increased amount of enchantment. Hellfire instantly began to burn along the center of the tree demon grandmother's body, then spread to its entire form. The tree demon rolled around in silent agony, and the black mist, invisible to human eyes, shot straight into the sky. Before long, the tree demon grandmother was burned to charcoal. No way, it died so easily. And here I was guarding against you using a big move. Roger walked over cautiously. Fearing that it was playing dead and would deliver a final, fatal blow, he didn't go over, but after thinking about it, he fired another shot. Confirming it was truly dead, he slowly walked over, kicked it, and it was indeed dead. Roger looked at the tree demon grandmother before him, his eyes lighting up. In the great celestial empire, there was some kind of wood that was great material for exorcism, and it was priceless and unavailable. Come to think of it, if lightning struck wood is so valuable, then wood burned by Hellfire should be similar, especially since this was a tree demon that had become an evil spirit and constantly fed on humans. Saying and doing, he collected the charred remains of the trunk, looked around, took out a shovel, and dug up the soil around the tree demon grandmother. The soil didn't look like much, but having been rooted in it for so many years, it might sell for something, keeping the attitude of plucking a feather from every passing goose. Roger painstakingly shoveled the dirt. After a while, he heard footsteps running over. Roger reluctantly put away his tools. It was a pity, but he couldn't lose face in front of the juniors. Brother Gia, did you eliminate it? The tall Sam asked curiously. He looked left and right, but didn't see the evil spirit's corpse, just some charred burn marks on the ground. Ahem, no need to look. That evil spirit was a big tree, it turned to ash after being burned. Alright, the matter is resolved, we should go. Then, the group walked out of the forest. Dean, however, looked around suspiciously, feeling a bit puzzled. But thinking of the scarecrows that had attacked them suddenly falling over one by one, as if they had lost their power, he didn't dwell on it anymore. The sacred tree must have been destroyed. When they were halfway there, they found a corpse, which was one of the farmers who had fled. Without the scarecrows, I wonder if this town will be destroyed. Dean sighed. Roger rolled his dead fish eyes. Do you think this is a magic world? This is already post-World War II. Roger said leisurely, now that technology is so advanced, farms have long been technologized. Only this town is so backward that it still needs to use evil spirits to farm. Besides, this country has nothing if not land. At worst, they can just move somewhere else and keep farming. Having been retorted by Roger, Dean didn't know how to respond. Indeed, technology was too advanced now, and farms were long since managed scientifically. He didn't know what the farmers here were thinking. For over half a century, they were still playing that game of using evil spirits to farm. If they had even a little brain to introduce some scientific planting methods, it wouldn't have ended up like this. The group got into the car and drove off slowly. As they were about to leave the town, Dean said he wanted to go drive his own car. So in the end, the girl was in the car with Dean, and Sam was in the car with Roger. Roger could tell that this big boy seemed to have something he wanted to ask him. Speak up, what is it? With that look of yours, not to mention me, even your brother and the others noticed, which is why they specifically arranged for you to be in the same car as me. Sam scratched his head embarrassedly and smiled, Brother Gia, I want to ask how to use the power inside my body to perform exorcisms. Hey, Brother Roger, I want to ask how to use the power inside my body to perform as an exorcist. Google search reading. It's very simple. Have money. Quote exclamation mark question mark quote. You want to learn. I'll teach you, but I charge a fee. No cheating, fair prices. The principle of equivalent exchange. How much money you give is how much I teach you. It's very logical, isn't it? Sam nodded and said, that's right. As an exorcist who rarely works, time is precious, after all. Every night, I have to train my Ghost Rider powers, and during the day, I have to learn all sorts of miscellaneous spells. Occasionally, I even have to go to Hollywood to comfort those pretty girls who can't become stars and feel lonely, empty, and cold. Spending time to teach a stranger how to control his own power just because he was a protagonist I saw before transmigrating. Ahem, I'd be roasted by readers for bootlicking. Unless he becomes my lackey, where Big Brother says go east and he doesn't go west, then I might consider teaching him for free. Let's talk about it when you get back. Anyway, I live in New York year-round, I won't be running around without a commission. You can come find me once you've thought it over. After saying this, Roger sped up and drove toward the motel where George and the others were staying. After a night of rest, the next day it was time to say goodbye. Dean had to take the girl who was almost murdered by her own aunt to catch a bus. Moreover, they wanted to go to California to find their father, Little Frog looking for his father. Sam was still hesitating. Finally, Roger told him the price of the tuition, and he indicated that he would return to New York to find Roger after finishing the business with his brother. When Dean heard Roger say that his brother had demonic power inside him, he was incredibly shocked and even asked Roger to check him out too. There is no smell of sulfur in your body, but your constitution is very special. I can't put my finger on it, but if you practice spells, it should be very fast. Roger left one thing unsaid. You also belong to that 1 in a million talent. As the protagonist of a show, your talent and luck are both top tier. That's it then. Be careful on the road, and remember to think twice before doing anything. After saying this, Roger handed Sam his business card, which had his number on it. Roger waved, said goodbye to the Winchester brothers, fastened his seatbelt, started the car, and drove toward New York. This trip was smooth sailing. He didn't encounter any wandering souls or vengeful spirits, and he arrived safely in New York. Roger first sent George back home. After all, he probably wouldn't recover for 2 or 3 months, and he told him to notify him immediately if there was any news about Sally's car. He was extremely curious about that clone that walked out of the magic mirror. What was his own negative emotion like? After thinking for a long time, he still couldn't figure out what negative emotions he had. Maybe he was just thick-skinned. Perhaps that mirror image had already disappeared because he had come out, it couldn't possibly stay in reality. Sally, what kind of personality did that, me, who walked out of the magic mirror have? Because she lived in another place, Roger still had to send her back. The car had been given to George, so they were taking a taxi. Sally thought for a moment. He gave me the feeling that he was similar to you, just that he seemed a bit more real than you. Yes, his personality highlighted himself more. After saying this, Sally glanced at him and lowered her head shyly. In other respects, it didn't seem any different. Is that so? Roger scratched his nose. Maybe the time they spent together was too short to notice. How could his negative personality be exactly the same as his own? Hey, what are you two talking about? Magic mirror. Like in a fairy tale. Why don't I understand? The driver was an Indian guy with dark skin, but he was quite cheerful. However, he looked like an honest man, which reminded Roger of a supporting character who drives for the protagonist. We are talking about a devil who walked out of a magic mirror. Oh, what a lovely story. We've reached your destination. The young driver pointed. Unknowingly, they had already arrived downstairs at Sally's home. Roger took out 2 banknotes to give him, but unexpectedly, the young driver waved his hand, indicating it wasn't necessary. No need for a tip. I just happened to be off work, and this is my home too. Oh, thanks a lot then. What should I call you? The young driver extended his hand, but his eyes kept glancing at a car to the side. Jeremy. Roger also extended his hand and said, Roger. I see you seem a bit irritable. Is something on your mind? The Indian guy, Jeremy, pointed to an apartment building on the other side. Ah, yes, it's that car. It always hogs my parking space. I have to wait for me to call him before he comes down. It's so annoying. Roger asked curiously, every time. And he only picks your parking space? Yes, exactly. That guy doesn't park anywhere else, he just picks my space to park in. I really want to beat him up. Roger looked at Jeremy's head. Do you have a wife or a girlfriend? The driver, Jeremy, was surprised. How did you know? I have a girlfriend I've lived with for 3 years. We're planning to get married. He signaled for Sally to get out of the car first, then pulled a shovel from behind him and patted the Indian guy on the shoulder. He looked at Jeremy with a pitying gaze. Go straight home later. Don't call. He left the young man Jeremy standing there, completely bewildered, holding the shovel and racking his brain to figure out what Roger meant. He even curiously looked at Roger's butt, wondering how he managed to pull out such a long iron shovel. After sending Sally downstairs, Roger intended to leave, but unexpectedly, Sally said one sentence. Wait. Sally blinked, her pretty face slightly flushed. It's so late, it's a bit dangerous if you can't get a car back. Do you want to come up for a cup of coffee? Roger actually wanted to say that he still had a motorcycle hidden in his portable space and it was convenient to go anywhere. However, since the other party invited him up for coffee, it would seem a bit unsociable not to go. I called and asked, the kids aren't home today. Hiss. Things had reached this point. Not going would make him seem like less of a man. I'll have 2 cups. In this country, when one person invites another to their home for coffee, don't think there is any malice, it might really just be coffee. It's just that after drinking coffee, whether something else happens if the other person finds you pleasing is hard to say. Therefore, when a boy is out and about, he must protect himself well. The boy, who was tricked into the house under the guise of drinking coffee, thus encountered the greatest danger in history. Fortunately, he was agile and exercised frequently, especially his waist, thighs, and lower body muscles, which were very robust. One was a mother who had been single for a long time, and the other was a young man in his prime. The two could be described as evenly matched. The two wrestled for a whole night. In the end, Roger, who had the body of the Ghost Rider, gained the upper hand and directly defeated this unscrupulous young woman who abducted boys, achieving victory. Sigh, when boys go out, they must protect themselves well, otherwise they'll end up like me, having their kidneys drained by someone accidentally. Early in the morning, Roger walked out of the apartment, clutching his waist and supporting himself against the wall. Oh, it's you. Why are you here? Did you bring my mommy back? She called last night and said she was back in New York. A childish voice came from ahead. Roger looked up and saw a little boy, the very child who had commissioned the task. You're that who? What's your name again? Roger scratched his head, unable to recall it for a long time. I'm Tom. I'm the one who commissioned you to help me find my mommy because the police couldn't find her. Oh, right, Tom, a kid with a unique name. By the way, your mom is already back, she's at home, go on in. The little boy Tom was overjoyed. Really? That's great. Do you want to come in and sit for a while? I'll pour you a glass of water. You don't seem to be feeling well, and I still want to properly thank you. Roger waved his hand. No need, your mom has already thanked me several times. You go in. The little boy didn't understand. Oh, okay, I'm going in then. Thank you. Watching Tom skip and run happily into the house, Roger sighed, truly mother and son, both so fond of thanking others. Sitting on his Harley motorcycle and basking in the sun, he finally felt much better. Vroom, sunglasses, trench coat, plus the motorcycle, he was incomparably cool along the way, except for punching his aging lower back every now and then. After thinking for a moment, he drove to Queens and stopped in front of a dilapidated photo studio. This place specialized in developing photos for paparazzi. Speed was the owner's specialty, but the downside was that it cost extra. Of course, normal photos didn't cost extra, but since they often helped develop photos of celebrity privacy, those required extra payment. The reason the owner enjoyed it so much was simply because he could be the first to admire the privacy of those beautiful female stars. Boss, rush order, here you go. As soon as he entered, Roger took out his film roll and tossed it to him. It was still the era of film rolls, and mobile phones were still button-operated. But film had its own advantages, each had its drawbacks. All right, haven't seen you in a long time, Roger. Getting rich recently, haven't been taking jobs. The owner was a curly-haired man wearing glasses who looked particularly sleazy. Needless to say, he was an old lecher, but due to his looks, he could only satisfy himself by looking at photos. Roger was a regular here because, in addition to exorcism tasks, he sometimes took mercenary jobs. Mercenary for what? Of course, celebrity gossip. The pay for mercenaries fighting to the death in Africa was nowhere near as much as the pay for celebrity gossip. For example, last time a big star wanted to break up with his wife but was afraid of losing his massive fortune in the divorce, so he hired Roger to keep an eye on his wife. After tailing her for a month, with the employer's deliberate cooperation, his wife thought her celebrity husband had gone abroad and proceeded to go out and live a debauched life, eventually being successfully photographed cheating by Roger. With those 360-degree intimate photos of bedroom activities, Roger received a full $10 million in payment. It was expensive, but compared to the star's massive fortune, it was negligible. Unfortunately, these kinds of mercenary tasks usually meant not opening for business for 3 years, but one job would feed you for 3 years, they weren't that easy to come by. Roger, wait for me for an hour. Sit down yourself, pour yourself whatever you want to drink. All right, go do your thing. Watching the curly-haired owner go in to develop the photos, Roger sat bored on the sofa outside and waited. The curly-haired guy had been doing this for years, and his integrity in this line of work was trustworthy. He wouldn't secretly make a copy of the photos for himself, which was the secret to his reputation. Bored, Roger took out a cigarette, then extended a finger and used Hellfire to light it. He took a satisfying puff. As long as he wasn't in direct sunlight, he could now partially transform. Since then, he never carried a lighter again. Ghost Rider's flames had a high temperature, so lighting a cigarette was a piece of cake. Bored, he started browsing the news and looking at some celebrity gossip, thinking he might find some interesting jobs. Recently, a heinous case of rape and murder of a young girl is about to go to trial. According to reports, the defendant suffers from mental illness and had previously spent half a year in a psychiatric hospital 5 years ago due to a drunk driving incident. Tisk tisk, looks like a rich second-generation kid. They really know how to play. Whenever something happens, they use the mental illness, get-out-of-jail-free card to escape. Bored, Roger kept changing channels and also watched some trailers to see what new movies were coming out recently. Watching American comic book blockbusters in the American comic world was one of Roger's hobbies. As long as he saw a certain movie in the theater, he knew that the people from that movie probably wouldn't appear in this world. Eventually, he found a cartoon to watch, boredly passing the remaining time. After an hour passed, the curly-haired guy finally finished developing the photos. Whoa, Roger, your photos this time are a bit unique. They're all just patterns. Yes, these are some magic runes. Same old rules, I've added extra money for you, remember not to talk about it. Roger took the photos and negatives, looked at them, and then took out some US dollars and handed them over. Hee, I know the rules. Remember to take care of me next time you have business. The curly-haired guy looked at the money gleefully and put away the banknotes. I'm off, no need to see me out. He waved his hand and walked out of the dilapidated photo studio. Roger was in a rush to get to the next place, which was Chinatown. There was an appraiser he knew there, a monk from the East. This monk was a magic apprentice, or what was known as a Muggle constitution, a natural talentless waste who couldn't learn magic no matter what. But he was a genius with profound knowledge. Relying on the books and various artifacts he had collected over the years, he successfully entered the realm of mages. How did he get in? Of course, just like Roger, he took out a loan. Mortals couldn't learn magic, but the devil could let you learn it. As long as you sign a contract and engage in some backdoor dealings, you can successfully obtain the magic you've always dreamed of. The monk's name was Wuxin. Because he was afraid of death, after consulting a large amount of literature, he turned himself into something similar to a lich. His heart was hidden somewhere. If you hit his body's vital points, he wouldn't die, unless you hit his brain. It could be considered a form of alternative immortality. Monk Wuxin, I've come to you for an appraisal. I've brought some good stuff this time, hurry up and come out to receive a customer. Roger parked his car in front of his joss stick and candle shop and walked in. Selling ingots and candles was just Monk Wuxin's side business. His main business was helping others appraise all sorts of miscellaneous items and selling materials for magic and exorcism. Oh, Za Luo, why are you here? Where have you been getting rich lately? A short, chubby, bald monk walked out. Getting rich? I just took a thankless task. Stop talking nonsense, look at these photos and appraise them for me. Roger didn't waste words either and tossed the folder over. Monk Wuxin opened the folder with a chuckle, took out the photos inside, and his expression changed abruptly upon seeing them. This is Kamar Taj's magic runes. What, Kamar Taj? Roger was bewildered. How did these runes get involved with Kamar Taj? Google search to read. Yes, I can't be mistaken. These are their magic runes. The short, stout uncaring monk's eyes lit up, like a glutton seeing a feast. His hands continuously flipped through one photo after another. The short, stout uncaring monk swallowed, saying, these magic runes are from Kamar Taj. That's right, I can't be mistaken. Then the uncaring monk pointed to one of the photos. This is a rune for spatio-temporal magic. If I'm not mistaken, in the photo, it should be carved on a magic item, likely a spatio-temporal type. Roger nodded. That's right, it's a magic mirror. Go on. The stout uncaring monk sighed, pulled out 2 cigarettes, offered one to Roger, lit one for himself, and took a puff as if reminiscing about the past. Kamar Taj is the sanctuary for all sorcerers in the world. Many hope to enter there to learn magic, but unfortunately, those without Yuanfan will never find it. When I was young, I also went to Nepal to look for it, but after more than a year, I couldn't find it. Not just me, even many highly skilled magic users couldn't find it. Do you know why? Why? As a listener, Roger was always a good boy, eager to dig out more inside information. In magic, the highest ranks are 2 types, time magic and space magic. These 2 types of magic not only demand the most talent but are also the most mysterious and hardest to comprehend. In Kamar Taj, there's a supreme spell, rumored to create a mirror dimension, where any battle won't affect reality. Mirror dimension. Isn't that the mirror dimension? Roger pondered. It seemed like a common spell in the movies that even the sweeping monks in the sanctum could use. Not just the sweeping ones, even those with missing limbs could use it. How did it become a high-level spell to the uncaring monk? But Roger was a good boy and didn't have a habit of interrupting others, so he gestured for the stout uncaring monk to continue. The uncaring monk took another puff of his cigarette and said wistfully, there are few people in the world who know spatio-temporal magic. They can directly trap enemies in the mirror dimension, where they starve to death in a few days. Not just humans, even those evil spirits, fiends, and devils, despite often sneaking into the human realm, rarely possess spatio-temporal magic. I once heard that a fiend who snuck into the human realm was defeated by a Kamar Taj magic apprentice. The apprentice only used one move, trapping the fiend in the mirror dimension. As a result, the fiend was trapped for over 100 years and literally starved to death. Roger. Therefore, this is also why many people go there admiringly but can never find Kamar Taj. Those who don't understand spatio-temporal magic will never find its entrance. Furthermore, it is said that Kamar Taj also has more advanced time magic. Anyone who intends to harm it, they basically know about it before they even come knocking. Because they have the time stone, Roger grumbled. Among all the infinity stones, Roger thought the time stone was the most powerful. Reason 1. It can never be lost because it can foresee the future. If you even think about stealing the stone, the holder will know. Reason 2. The Great Resurrection Spell, a large-scale time reversal that revives various recently deceased people. It's just unknown if mummies who died thousands of years ago can be revived. There's also an ultimate skill, similar to Izanami from a certain anime in his previous life, which can create infinite loops. Ahem, looking at these photos, it looks a bit like a mirror frame. Roger. Could these Kamar Taj runes be carved on a mirror? Roger. The stout uncaring monk further probed, could this mirror be in your hands? Roger. If you're willing to take out the mirror for me to appraise, I'll do it for free this time. How about it? The uncaring monk rubbed his hands, saying a bit awkwardly. I don't believe you, you old bald man, you're very sly. You understand Kamar Taj's spatio-temporal magic. I remember you said very few of its books and spells flowed outside. That's right, so I need to consult a lot of material information to help you appraise these things, especially here, you see, several pieces are missing in the middle. I can't help you restore it without a complete mirror. No need, just help me appraise what I brought. Oh, write it in detail. Roger waved his hand, certainly not giving it all to him at once. This time, the uncaring monk only received 30% of the magic runes from the magic mirror. He planned to find others for the rest. Hee, one must be cautious. Alright, if you change your mind, call me. For these runes, I'll charge you 10,000 each. Seeing Roger's refusal, the stout monk dropped his friendly facade and spoke business-like. 10,000 for one magic rune. Why don't you just rob me? Roger shrieked. This wasn't 10,000 Vietnamese dong, it was 10,000 US dollars. Rob. No, this is much easier than robbing. It's a knowledge monopoly. If you don't believe me, go find others in the dark world, they'll charge even more. I'm giving you a discount because you speak Chinese so fluently. The uncaring monk leaned back in his rocking chair, acting as if he didn't care if Roger stayed or left. Knowledge monopoly was just that powerful, it's your fault for not understanding. Roger glared at him, gritting his teeth, you profiteer. I'll give you half now, and the other half after you've finished appraising them. The uncaring monk shook his head like a rattle drum. No, that won't do. Small businesses don't offer credit. I'll appraise as many as you pay for. Roger took a deep breath, pulled out several bundles of US dollar bills he hadn't even warmed up yet, and threw them on the table. Appraise 40 for me first. After saying that, he angrily counted the photos, tossed 40 magic runes to him, and then walked out of the incense and candle shop. From afar, a voice echoed from behind, all right, customer, please take care. Pa, a vampire, just like those dogs from the IRS. Roger spat. The US dollars he had just extorted from the devils, not even warm yet, were spent just like that. Nearly 20% was taken by tax, leaving over 400,000, and now this monk had also taken some. Truly. Heartache. Devils aren't something you can just extort whenever you want, because without a medium, they're hard to summon, and you don't know if the summoned fiends or devils have the ability to give money. Both are essentially denizens of hell, just like black people and white people, the difference isn't very significant. But devils who can use causality to get money for summoners according to a contract are few and far between. Sigh, I'll just have to take on some jobs. Money isn't everything, but not having it is absolutely impossible. This saying holds true everywhere. Exorcists earn a lot, but their expenses are naturally high as well, and not everyone uses the methods they know to make big money. Because the most profitable things are all clearly priced in the criminal code. So Roger could only bitterly look for jobs to take. First, he wouldn't take jobs that were exhausting and tiring. Second, he wouldn't take jobs with low pay and a heavy workload, because he only picked 8-hour shifts. After filtering like this, Roger scratched his head. It seemed there really weren't many left. Arriving at his usual spot, Daddy's bar, he walked in, greeted the boss, and ordered a cocktail. At the same time, he asked about any good jobs lately, ones with good pay, light work, and an 8-hour, 5-day schedule. Roger, it's not that there aren't any jobs with good pay, light work, and an 8-hour, 5-day schedule, but those kinds of tasks are usually snatched up as soon as they appear. The bar owner, Ray, said helplessly. Everyone is happy to snatch up those kinds of tasks. Only tasks with high danger, where many people can't assess the risks, go unclaimed. For instance, there's one right now. What? Be a bodyguard for a crazy oil tycoon's second-generation heir for a week. $500,000 US. This task isn't bad at all. Why is no one taking it? Roger couldn't help but ask curiously what kind of task was so good that he could earn $500,000 in a week. Because several people applied, and they all disappeared. I don't know if they died or what happened. Ray shrugged and explained slowly. It turned out that this second-generation heir's family were oil magnates, the billionaire kind, of course, and the other party was genuinely mentally ill. Last month, for some unknown reason, he suddenly changed personality, killed a girl with extremely cruel methods, and was then sued by the FBI. Now, the court is in the middle of a trial. Roger thought about it. Isn't this the news he just saw this morning? He had originally been full of disdain for this country's laws, where rich people could just fake an illness to escape justice, but he didn't expect this to be his employer. All right, I'll take this job. I'll go check it out, Roger said readily. If it's some devil possessing him to kill, then he'd just kill the devil. If that doesn't work, he'd kill both the hostage and the devil. If it's just a second-generation heir playing dumb, Roger can't do the killing, that's illegal. Let's leave it to the Ghost Rider. Daddy Ray picked up his phone and made a call, saying a few words to someone. The gist was that an exorcist had taken the job. The person on the phone agreed and said to just go report to such and such place the next day. Beep, beep. Just at this moment, Roger's phone rang. He picked it up and saw it was an unknown number. Could it be a new client? Roger pressed the button with anticipation and held it to his ear. Hello, who is this? Hi, do you remember me? I want to post a task. A voice of a little boy who had just graduated from kindergarten came through the phone. Roger. Listening to the voice, it wasn't Sally's son. Roger thought for a moment and decided to just ask directly. Who are you? I can't remember. It's me, the boy you helped steal the test papers last time. Don't you remember me? Ah, it really was an old acquaintance, the old acquaintance who had ruined Roger's lifelong reputation. That's actually not bad. Oh, it's you. What do you want now? Don't tell me you failed your exam again and want me to help you steal the test papers. Hee, you guessed right. But the exam hasn't happened yet. I want you to help me with this test. My dad said if I can pass this time, he'll take me to Disneyland. Good lad, I like it. This kid has a future. Alright, let's meet and talk. Same as before. No money, I want something with sentimental value. Okay, let's go to the burger joint where we made our last trade. After hanging up, Roger suddenly remembered he hadn't even asked what the brat's name was. By evening, Roger arrived at a burger shop. Under the weird gaze of the waiter, he only ordered 2 cups of soda, then sat by the window to wait. After a while, a sneaky little boy wearing sunglasses and carrying a school bag crept in. What was your name again? I forgot. Tell me, what do you plan to give me as payment this time? I don't want money, I want something valuable. My name is Jamie. Uncle, why are you so forgetful? I've told you so many times. Roger's face darkened. Call me, Uncle, again, and I'm not taking the job. The little boy hurriedly fawned. Sorry, Brother Gia. You are a my lord with a vast heart, please forgive me. This time, I stole quite a few of my dad's collector's items. You'll definitely like them. Roger. The little boy first took out a gold necklace. Roger looked at it, white, no value, and shook his head. Seeing this, the little boy put it away and then took out a small box. Roger opened it to look. Goodness, an antique, and a rooster bowl at that. The value was quite high, and it could probably sell for a lot of money, but to the system master, it was still white. He could only shake his head regretfully. This doesn't work either. Then I'll give you this. It's what my dad keeps locked in the safe. Collector's edition. The brat Jamie took out a booklet of collected discs. He carefully looked around and whispered, "This is my dad's collector's edition. He treasures it very much." Roger opened it and gasped. It was indeed precious. Discs from many years ago, truly a collector's edition. It probably carried the precious memories of a young man's youth. It was worth hundreds of millions. This thing. Roger looked at it. The system judged it as gold. It was indeed very precious, but if he accepted it, wouldn't his reputation be ruined if word got out? But why would the system categorize this brat's stolen items from his dad? Shouldn't it only count if it's the kid's own stuff? You must keep this a secret for me. You can't tell anyone, or my dad will beat me to death. The little boy Jamie urged. Since you're also afraid of others finding out, then this item seems acceptable. At least if no third party knows, there's no danger of ruining his reputation. All right, I'll accept this payment. Tell me about the specific task. Roger readily agreed. Hee, last time you helped me steal the test papers and burn them, but it didn't work. 2 days later, the school got another pile of papers and held an exam again. I failed in the end. The brat Jamie touched his head embarrassedly. So this time I think we should change methods. You steal one test paper, write down the answers for me, and I'll memorize them. That way, the exam will be foolproof. Roger sighed. Good lad, he has a future. If he had had this much intelligence, he wouldn't have been an academic failure in his past life. My dad also said if I pass, he'll increase my allowance and take me to the amusement park. All right, say no more. I'll go to your school tonight to steal the test papers. It's still the same teacher's office as last time, right? Roger interrupted him. That's the one. I'm counting on you. A dark and windy night is the perfect time for murder and arson, for stealing exam papers. Roger masked his face, then thought about it and decided to change his avatar instead. After all, even with a mask, there was a chance of being exposed. An avatar was the safest bet. He directly switched to an African skin. It was cheap, costing not even a single silver game coin, just copper. In the game system, the cheapest character skins were black, followed by yellow and white. If you wanted to mold a celebrity's face, it was more expensive, and if you wanted fingerprints and pupils identical to a Junran immortal, it would cost gold coins. For an avatar that could be handled with a single copper coin, there was no need to spend on high-end ones. Besides, a black avatar provided natural stealth at night, so why not? With such a dark avatar, I could stand right in front of a security guard and he wouldn't notice me. Roger gave a sneaky grin, revealing 2 rows of pearly white teeth, dressed in black clothes, black pants, black shoes, and his black avatar. Aside from his teeth, everything else was black. I guarantee you wouldn't even recognize him as a person. This school was an elementary school. Since land was at a premium in New York and the little monks were too young to live on campus, there were no dormitory buildings here. U.S. elementary schools are usually 6 years, and middle school is also 6 years. The difference is that U.S. middle school only has 2 years for junior high, grades 7 and 8, while high school consists of grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. Inside the school, aside from the 2 elderly guards at the gate, everything was quiet and deserted. There wasn't anything valuable here, so usually, no black people came in to steal. The last time the school's exam papers were stolen en masse, the place became famous for a while. Although no property was lost, the school still installed a few surveillance cameras. Roger arrived at the office from last time, familiar with the route. He skillfully pulled out a master key, opened a drawer, and searched around. Good heavens, a thick stack of exam papers. This was probably what that brat Jamie was going to take the exam for. Borno, come over and take a look. It looks like a thief has come. An old black man sitting in the guardroom rubbed his eyes and looked at the monitor. You've had too much to drink, there's no one there. Another old black man came over and looked at the monitor. It was pitch black. Where was there anyone? No, look, it's dark here, like someone is there. The old man pointed to an office where a small section of a desk was covered in black. There's nothing valuable here. Surely those fools from the slums wouldn't come to steal exam papers. Ha. I'll go take a look. You stay here and keep an eye out. If things don't look right, call the police. The old guard was quite responsible. He picked up a flashlight and headed toward the school's office building. Roger had already pulled out one exam paper and then restored the surroundings to avoid leaving traces. He wore black gloves to ensure no fingerprints were left. As he walked out of the office feeling pleased, a set of footsteps echoed in the hallway. An old black man in a security uniform shone his flashlight around, checking the area. The light even swept over Roger. Just as Roger was considering whether to knock him out, the other man seemed to sigh in relief and walked straight back. Roger, so he really couldn't see me. Aren't you black too? How can you be so blind? But not being discovered was a good thing. Roger nimbly walked out of the school, reached the corner, hopped over the wall, and happily completed this mission to steal the exam paper. By the next morning, when the sun rose, Roger realized a serious problem. That is, he didn't seem to be able to do this exam paper himself. That's right, different cultures. Before he transmigrated, he was just a bad student, he didn't understand English at all. Since coming to this world, he hadn't attended school. He could understand spoken and written English, but as for the homework, forget it, better leave it to a professional. Roger stroked his chin and suddenly had an idea. The morning roads were exceptionally quiet. This wasn't among the skyscrapers in the center of New York, so the traffic jams weren't particularly terrible. On the busy road, many little monks were rushing to school. Some were riding bicycles, some were being dropped off by parents, and some poor children were walking to school alone. Roger looked around for prey and his eyes lit up. There was a four-eyed brat who looked very honest and had the kind of face that was particularly easy to bully. Four eyes meant reading a lot. In an era without smartphones, kids wore glasses either from watching too much TV or from studying too much. Hey, you, yeah you, little four eyes. Don't run, I'm not going to hit you. Roger was exasperated. Why did this four-eyed brat run as soon as he saw him? Was he really that terrifying? He grabbed the kid's backpack and turned him around to face him. I'm not going to hit you, what are you running for? The brat said timidly, you were chasing me, so of course I ran. I won't hit you. Tell me, how are your grades? I'm first in my class. First, Roger's eyes lit up. He'd found the right one. These honest-looking, easy-to-bully types were indeed all top students. Roger pulled out an exam paper and slapped it down in front of him. Here, take this. Finish this exam paper and don't let anyone find out. I'll come find you tonight to pick it up. How does $100 sound? $100. The four-eyed kid's eyes lit up. Such a large tip wasn't low, he took it. No problem, you don't have to wait until tonight. Give me half an hour and I can finish it. Oh no, 20 minutes. Fine, if you can finish it in half an hour, I'll give you an extra 100. Okay, it's a deal. After saying that, the little elementary monk extended his fist and bumped it with Roger's. The contract was made. 20 minutes later, the little monk triumphantly held up the exam paper and waved it. Roger reached out to take it, but the kid tucked it behind his back and rubbed his index finger and thumb together. Good heavens, a little kid with a big ego. He looked easy to bully, but he found his courage as soon as money was involved. However, Roger wasn't about to stiff an elementary monk. He readily pulled out 2 banknotes and placed them in the kid's hand, completing the transaction. The little brat was overjoyed after receiving the banknotes and went off skipping. Halfway there, he suddenly turned back, pulled out a piece of paper, wrote down a phone number, and handed it to Roger. This is my home phone number. If you need homework or exams done next time, you can find me. I'll tell you a secret, I can even do some of the higher grade papers. Roger took the small slip of paper, only a phone number was written on it, no name. Hey, what's your name? My name is Peter. All right, a common name. Roger shrugged and put the slip of paper in his pocket. Wait, Peter, it couldn't be that brat who likes swinging on ropes, could it? Besides swinging, he's also the guy who likes to leave protein residue all over the city from his hands. When he finally appeared, he was aged beyond recognition, almost like an old uncle. With the modification of the super spider gene, logically, he shouldn't age for half a century. Clearly, it was the consequence of losing too much protein. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. Roger remembered there were 3 versions of Spider-Man, but he didn't know which one it was. He scratched his head and glanced at his watch. The appointment was for 10 o'clock, so he should head over. A 1-week exorcist bodyguard mission. He didn't know what it would be like, so he would see how things went first, and if it didn't work out, he would refuse. That was just how the protagonist was, capricious, picky about work, and ready to fire his boss if things didn't go well. In New York State, located upstream of the Hudson River and 2 hours away from Manhattan, there was a massive estate covering over 3,000 acres, the kind of super-sized estate that only top-tier billionaires could afford to live in. Its master had the surname Getty. Wearing sunglasses and riding his motorcycle to the gate, he checked the time, it was just right. After parking the bike, he went up and rang the doorbell. Soon, someone who looked like a servant came to open the door and led Roger into the large villa on the estate. "Sir, please wait here. Our butler, Mr. Matthew Byrne, will be here shortly." "All right, thank you for the trouble." Sitting on the sofa in the reception room, Roger looked around. Good grief, they were truly filthy rich, the whole room looked plain and unremarkable. But upon closer inspection, everything was an antique. The paintings on the walls, the vases on the shelves, all of them were valuable items. Good heavens, it scared Roger into sitting up straight immediately, fearing that if he accidentally broke a vase, he would have to run for his life. Before long, a man dressed in a suit, who looked more like a boss than a butler, walked in and shook Roger's hand with a smile. "Hello, I am Matthew Vaughn, the butler here." "Hello, Roger." Matthew gestured for Roger to sit and waved his hand. A beautiful maid walked up and set down 2 cups of coffee. "Mr. Roger, I presume the middleman has already told you about the danger of this mission. The reward is 500,000 for 1 week. 500,000 is just the base, there is no cap. If Mr. Roger can uncover the truth, our master will give more." Roger stroked his chin, thought for a moment, and said, "I heard that 3 exorcists have already taken this mission before, and they all died." Matthew was silent for a moment, then said, "That is correct. All 3 are missing, and we suspect they are dead. That is why this mission carries a certain degree of danger, otherwise, we wouldn't be hiring an exorcist. Our bodyguards are sufficient for routine security tasks. This mission seems quite dangerous." "Indeed. So, what is your decision? Do you intend to proceed with this mission?" "No," Roger said seriously. "What I mean is, you need to pay more." "Pay more." Matthew was stunned for a moment. He thought the other party was afraid, but he didn't expect him to want more money. That was no problem. "That is acceptable. Within my authority, I can add 200,000. That adds up to 700,000 a week, which is 100,000 a day." "Fine, I'll reluctantly agree." Roger picked up the coffee and took a sip. 7 days, 100,000 a day was not a small amount. At least at this time, the value of the US dollar had not suffered from the inflation that would come later, and its purchasing power was still quite strong. The butler, Matthew, smiled. "Mr. Roger, I think you misunderstood. I meant 700,000 per day." "What, 700,000 a day?" Roger was stunned, and the coffee in his hand didn't taste good anymore. After all that, he had actually quoted too low. Is it too late for me to regret that?" "Hee," the butler, Matthew, said with a chuckle. "There is an Eastern saying, a word once spoken cannot be overtaken by 4 horses. You cannot go back on what you have agreed to." "Fine, 70 it is. I want to collect the money first, lest I die and haven't received the payment yet. Also, you got that saying wrong. It is, a gentleman's word is as good as a bond." "No problem, I will write you a check right now." After saying this, Matthew took out a check to fill it out. "Ahem, can you pay in cash?" "I accept cash." "Cash?" Matthew asked, surprised. "Of course, please wait a moment." Accepting cash was, of course, to evade taxes. It was impossible for Roger to contribute any personal income tax to this wicked country of 10,000 taxes. If he went to the bank to withdraw millions, it would inevitably leave a record, easily attracting the hyenas of this country. While millions in cash was certainly a lot, for a billionaire, it wasn't too difficult. Soon, a servant walked over carrying a large suitcase and opened it in front of Roger. Bundles of cash were laid out before him. "Mr. Roger, given that you are a long-term resident of New York and one of the more famous exorcists, we have chosen to trust you and pay the fee up front. Please count it." "Hee, no need. I trust the amount won't be short." Roger picked up the suitcase and checked it secretly, it shouldn't be short. Then, in front of Matthew, he put the money directly into his space. Matthew was stunned, completely shocked by Roger's trick of making things disappear into thin air. Clap, 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 clap. Matthew applauded and smiled. "You are indeed a well-known exorcist in the circle. Although your behavior is sometimes a bit strange, I no longer doubt your ability." Strange. It was Roger's turn to be full of question marks. Hee, according to our investigation, you sometimes take on tasks for children, such as stealing test papers. After saying this, Matthew winked. Roger, in New York, there is nothing a billionaire cannot investigate. This is, after all, a city of capital, so there is no need to feel strange. By the way, Mr. Roger, if possible, I hope you can start working from tonight, because our young master's mental state is becoming increasingly unstable. Roger said, fine, take me to see him. The money was already collected. Even if the other party was truly a second-generation rich kid who had killed someone, he would just have to finish this week. As for after a week, whether this second-generation kid died at the hands of a skeleton man, what did that have to do with him, Roger? This way, he hadn't lost his principles, nor had he lost his integrity, the best of both worlds. Sigh, wicked money. Afterward, the servant took Roger to a garden on the estate. Ahem, they came by car. Wicked capitalists, the garden was too big. Roger couldn't help but maliciously think that if one day the master was taking a walk in the estate and suddenly had a stomachache and needed to have diarrhea, would he crap his pants before running back to the restroom? Tisk, tisk. So, a house just needs to be big enough to live in, too big is not good. At the very least, it's inconvenient to go to the bathroom. When the servant drove Roger to this second-generation kid, good grief, there were a dozen bodyguards in sunglasses and suits, all carrying the scent of blood. They were either soldiers who had been on the battlefield or had real combat experience. Seeing the young man in the middle with dull eyes and a pale face, Roger felt a trace of something strange. How should he put it? The other party didn't smell of sulfur, so he could be sure there was no demonic possession, but at the same time, he lacked the scent of a human. Mr. David, the person is here. This is the exorcist hired by Mr. Matthew. The servant said to a bodyguard wearing sunglasses. The bodyguard nodded, indicating he understood, and then walked over to shake Roger's hand. Hello, I am David, and I am the head of security here. The burly white man, David, extended a thick arm covered in tattoos. Good grief, it was nearly as thick as both of Roger's arms put together. Hello, I am Roger. You can call me Lo. Lo is my surname. Although I've never believed in things like exorcists, since Matthew has hired you, just tell me directly if there is anything you need my cooperation with. Very well. May I see this, gentlemen? Roger pointed to the young man lying on the sun chair, staring blankly. Of course, but his mental state has been poor lately. Please do not do anything to provoke him. Understood. A person who had committed murder and was currently being prosecuted by the court would, of course, have a poor mental state. Roger walked forward to observe carefully and sniffed with the nose of the Ghost Rider. There was a sin value, but that didn't necessarily mean anything. The bodyguards around him all had sin values, as they might have killed people abroad during their years as soldiers. However, this second-generation rich kid named Lucas seemed a bit strange, as if his soul was missing something. To explain it in Eastern terms, a part of his 3 souls and 7 spirits was missing. Having been an exorcist for so long, this was the first time Roger had seen such a situation. The reason was simple. A devil wouldn't just take a bite out of a person's soul and put it back. If it wanted it, it would take the whole soul, who would only take half. Moreover, according to Roger's research, the soul was like the internal organs of the human body. If a piece was missing, it was game over. You could survive with one less kidney, but if a piece of the soul was missing, you'd likely be done for. Surviving it was as rare as an endangered animal. For someone to survive a devil biting off a piece of their soul was like undergoing a lobotomy. The difficulty was extremely high. After looking at the second-generation rich kid, Roger walked up to the head of security and asked, "May I ask how the previous exorcists died?" The head of security, David, was silent for a long time before saying, "We have preserved the scene. I can have someone take you to see it. It wasn't just the exorcists, several of our brothers died as well." "Can you tell me the specific details?" "It's indescribable. The monitors malfunctioned, and the next day, everyone on guard duty had an accident. So now, whenever the brothers hear about guarding Mr. Lucas at night, they feel a bit of fear, even though, as bodyguards, this is how we make our living." The head of security, David, said helplessly, "Several brothers have already handed in their resignations. They are all veterans from the battlefields of Central Asia. They wouldn't even frown in a hail of bullets, but these invisible enemies. David then explained to Roger why this second-generation rich kid named Lucas was experiencing these things. His uncle was a famous oil tycoon in this country, though not Rockefeller. Rockefeller was a family that had been passed down for over 100 years, and while it was vast, its assets had already been scattered as much as possible. Nowadays, most billionaires were ranked by personal assets. While family assets were numerous, they weren't as enviable as personal assets. Because his uncle, a billionaire, had no direct descendants, he had chosen this nephew, who was closest to him and with whom he had the best relationship, as his successor after his death. Then the problem arose. Many people were jealous of this oil tycoon's wealth, so they wanted to kill Lucas. Last month, for some unknown reason, Lucas suddenly changed his temperament, killed a girl, and coincidentally, there was evidence captured on camera and exposed. Thus, there was the news Roger had seen at the beginning, the public opinion caused by a second-generation rich kid. For this reason, the billionaire brought Lucas over directly and assigned bodyguards to watch over him 24 hours a day. Then, a bodyguard took Roger to the room where the second-generation rich kid lived. The wicked capitalists, he had to take a car to finish the insanely long journey. It was really inconvenient. After looking at the items in his room, his gaze finally settled on a balance. Picking up the balance, Roger asked the bodyguard, "Can you tell me about this balance?" The bodyguard said, "This is an antique that Mr. Lucas bought when he went traveling in Egypt previously. It is said that experts appraised it as having a history of over 3,000 years. Roger picked up the palm-sized balance. It was bronze and covered in rust. In the eye of judgment, it was a balance without any power or devilish aura. But in the system's appraisal, it was a glowing object. Good grief, if it weren't for the game system's appraisal, he wouldn't have been able to discover it at all. I will keep this thing with me for the time being. I suspect it is the culprit behind this incident. One moment, please. I will notify Mr. Matthew." The bodyguard picked up a walkie-talkie, spoke a few words to the butler, Matthew, and then nodded. Mr. Matthew said, "It is fine. You are free to pick out anything in the manner that you feel is problematic." Understood. Soon, it was time for the sun to set, and the bodyguard sent the mentally unstable second-generation rich kid back into the room. Then they began to arrange the guard duties. The bodyguards assigned to the night shift all showed expressions of fear. In the end, the group chose a very large room, with Roger and another bodyguard guarding inside, while the others guarded outside the room. Just like that, slowly, it grew dark. When it was nearly midnight, Roger yawned in boredom and said, "Hey, why hasn't the situation you all mentioned appeared yet?" The bodyguard, however, looked at the time with a face full of sweat and did not answer. Just at this moment, shouts began to come from outside the door, accompanied by continuous gunfire. From behind came the sounds of banging and crashing, and over the walkie-talkie, the head of security, David, told Roger to hold the second floor and ignore everyone else. Finally, the door to the room shattered into pieces with a loud bang. Then, an invisible thing burst in. The bodyguard guarding inside drew his gun and looked around, but there was no one there. "Watch out." Before Roger could finish his sentence, the bodyguard was knocked flying out of the window by a massive force. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. At this moment, Roger's pupils had already turned into fire, and the eye of judgment was activated. A creature from the underworld, invisible to the human eye, had broken in. It seemed to be looking for something, turning the entire room upside down. The opponent seemed to have realized that Roger could see it, so it opened its bloody maw, roared directly at Roger, and charged forward. Looking at this big dog that was invisible to the naked eye, Roger drooled. Where could one buy a dog like this? If this were used to guard the house, it would be perfectly secure. Seeing that the dog was about to pounce on Roger and knock him to the ground, Roger, unhurried, took out the Arnie shotgun and fired a shot at it. This invisible giant dog looked disdainful. Human weapons would only pass through its body. The next second, a massive, searing pain caused it to roll all over the room, smashing all kinds of furniture to pieces. Finally, it crashed straight through a wall, landed in the garden outside, and then slowly stopped wailing, burned to death by the flames. Roger jumped out the window and approached the dead dog. It wasn't a ghost or anything similar, but rather something that could shift between physical and non-physical states, making it immune to firearms. More importantly, Roger didn't recognize it, but considering the Earth he lived on, he couldn't even identify all the creatures on Earth, so it wasn't strange that he didn't recognize a few creatures from Hell. Mr. Roger, what was that? The head of security, David, walked over and looked at the empty space in the fountain with a bewildered expression. Only the signs of damage indicated that some creature must have fallen here. Roger picked up a small pinch of ash. He needed to start searching for someone. Since this creature had appeared in the human world, there must be a manipulator behind it. Taking that pinch of ash as a medium, he began to mutter softly. Holy Mother of the Earth, Mother of the higher realms, please guide me, reveal the demon hiding here. The head of security, David, asked with a curious look, Mr. Roger, what are you chanting? This is Enochian, the language of the angel, a tracking spell. After saying this, Roger pulled a hell cycle out from behind him, sat on it, twisted the throttle according to the spell's guidance, and sped off. Quick, let's follow him. The head of security, David, shouted, hurriedly telling his men to get the cars. The manor was just too big. Roger's modified hell cycle roared. The advantage of two wheels became apparent, as it could go anywhere. Just as he was about to hit the high wall of the manor, Roger pulled up the front wheel and pulled off a stunt. The hell cycle's exhaust pipe spat out a stream of fire in midair to accelerate, and then it leapt over the high wall. Finally, it landed steadily on the ground outside the high wall and sped off again. Downstream of the Hudson River, a small speedboat was stopped on the pitch-black water, with two people sitting on it. One of them suddenly opened his eyes. Someone is following us, let's go. Someone is coming. I don't see any boat. The other one, responsible for driving the boat, looked bewildered and glanced around. He didn't see any boat following them. The one responsible for controlling the creatures from the underworld closed his eyes and muttered softly. A moment later, several hellhounds, just like the previous one, appeared by the riverbank. How to block them? Roger drew his gun and aimed at the hellhounds, taking them out one by one with a single shot each. The roar of a motorcycle approached as a hell cycle with flaming wheels drove straight from the land toward the speedboat. Good heavens, what were they seeing? A motorcycle that could drive on water, and its tires were on fire. Wouldn't the fire go out when it hit the water? When Roger drove right into the middle of the river, he jumped directly onto the speedboat. The two people on the speedboat didn't hesitate and fired several shots. Bang, bang, bang. After a few shots, Roger was unscathed and immediately drew his gun, shooting one of them in the thigh. Then he aimed his shotgun at the other one's head. Tell me, who are you, what is your objective here, and why are you driving creatures from the underworld? The two remained silent. Look at me, you fool. The one driving the boat instinctively looked into Roger's eyes and instantly had his soul ignited. Immediately, all the sinful things this person had done began to appear in his mind, and Roger also learned some things from his memories. When the eye of judgment ignited the opponent's soul, forcing them to repent and recall their past, Roger, as the Ghost Rider, could also see a portion of their soul's memories. However, it was ultimately not soul-stealing magic. A person's memories from childhood to adulthood were vast, so vast that the person might not even remember them all themselves. And the Ghost Rider could only pick out the important parts while the opponent was repenting and recalling. Otherwise, if he had to watch decades of memories every time he ignited someone, Roger would sooner or later go insane from all the clutter. In his memories, they were targeting the balance that Roger had taken from Lucas. This balance was an artifact unearthed from ancient Egypt half a year ago, and they suspected it had magic powers but couldn't find a way to use it. By chance, they hired grave robbers to steal it from a museum, but the most ridiculous thing happened. The second-generation rich kid, Lucas, happened to be traveling in Egypt. When the grave robbers saw he was interested in ancient Egyptian artifacts, they actually sold it to the highest bidder, Lucas. After the transaction, the grave robbers fled. They originally intended to take the item back, but they discovered that by pure luck, Lucas had actually mastered how to use the balance. After that, they kept summoning underworld creatures to intimidate Lucas, scaring him into constantly using the power of the balance, and slowly, he became mentally unstable. Ultimately, last month, he brutally murdered his girlfriend, and then he was caught by the FBI and prosecuted. After intimidating him several times, they also determined the method for using the balance, and later decided to kill him and take it back. What frustrated them was that the balance was different from any other magic item. It was like a stone on the side of the road, impossible to detect with magic. And the underworld creatures they summoned were fine for killing, but when it came to finding things, they were as useless as a husky. It was pathetic. Who is your leader? Tell me, Roger grabbed the other person and threatened him directly. Because he hadn't seen their leader in the other person's memories, it seemed like some mysterious power was protecting their memories. It's. The man driving the boat was clearly terrified by Roger's appearance and was about to say it. It's Yaya. Before he could finish speaking, his eyes rolled back, and a painful expression appeared on his face. Then he lay on the ground, struggling, and after a moment, he died. Dead. Roger stepped forward to check his pulse and heartbeat. They had already stopped. It was a curse that killed him. He had gotten into trouble. A cult that used black magic and curses. Roger couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. It's not the thief stealing that you fear, but the thief targeting you. But at least it wasn't without gains. The balance in his hand was a good prize from this encounter. Judging by the number of times they observed Lucas using it, the method for using this balance was exchange. Exchange something for something else. It was worthy of being a black magic item. Sure enough, none of them were free. He didn't know what Lucas had traded, but it ultimately led to him going crazy, as if he had even lost his soul. However, the power of the balance was also very strong. You get what you pay for. You can exchange for as much as you give. Roger blinked. He wondered if he could get it for free using the game system's character skins. Return it to Lucas. That was impossible. This thing had been damaged during the fight just now and fell into the water. Go find it yourselves. After returning to the manor, Roger spoke to the head of security about the matter. The man patted his chest and promised to take his people to check the river, assuring him that handling the dead bodies would be taken care of by them. As long as it wasn't exposed to the media, handling such matters was effortless for them. Mr. Roger, Matthew would like you to come over. He says he has something to discuss with you. Unknowingly, David, the head of security, had started using the honorific, you. This world is just that realistic. Those with ability can earn respect. When Roger arrived at the living room and saw the butler, Matthew, the man had a heavy expression on his face. The intruders have been dealt with. Looking at your expression, it seems something has happened. Young Master Lucas is dead. Dead? How did he die? As it turned out, he wasn't exactly dead, but had completely become a vegetable. He was brain dead, though his body was still alive. Roger was speechless for a moment. He didn't know what this person had traded, but the balance had continuously exacted a price. It probably wasn't brain death, but soul death, which was no different from being dead. I wanted to ask Mr. Roger, is there any way to fix this? For this, you'll need to find a doctor, or perhaps a priest to perform an exorcism to see if it has any effect. I'm afraid I can't do anything about it. Matthew nodded. He had only asked Roger while holding on to a sliver of hope. In reality, he knew that even a doctor couldn't do anything about brain death. As for a priest, he didn't hold out any hope that they could cure a brain-dead person, but he still made a call to invite one anyway. Mr. Roger, although those invisible intruders have been dealt with, I still hope you can stay to fulfill the contract and protect the young master for the rest of the week, just in case there are any remaining assassins. Roger patted his chest and said, leave it to me. Don't worry, I'm a person who keeps his promises. He hadn't slept all night. The bodyguards had shifts, but Roger didn't, so naturally, he needed to rest in the morning. A servant led him to a dining room, one several times larger than his own home, and served several plates of breakfast food. As Roger ate breakfast, he turned on the TV to take a look, planning to go back to rest shortly. On the television, a sensational piece of national news was being broadcast, which countless TV stations were relaying. 2 days ago, at the Auburn Correctional Facility in New York State, a private prison that the local government had contracted out to reduce the burden, welcomed a person who shouldn't have appeared in this prison. Because in this country, black people, despite making up 10% of the population, firmly dominated 80% of the crime statistics. They always stayed in first place, and no one could ever pull them down from that top spot. Therefore, in this prison, the most common race was, of course, black people, with fewer people of other ethnicities. And the private prison that had been contracted out had turned into a place where if you paid money, you could enjoy 5-star hotel treatment, but if you had no money, then you'd enjoy all sorts of inhumane treatment. Right now, this handsome mixed-race guy, no one knew how he'd gotten in, was being escorted by prison guards into the cell block at the very bottom where the black prisoners stayed. Whoa, look what we have today, a light-skinned, handsome mixed-race guy. One of the older black men licked his lips, looking at the young, handsome lad before him with a salivating expression. Hey, I'm first, we already agreed that I'm next. An older black man with several missing teeth smiled directly at the young lad and winked. I can let you go first, and then we'll take turns later. Ha 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 ha. The surrounding black men all laughed. No matter how they swapped, he wouldn't be escaping tonight. How could they let a lamb that had walked right into their mouths go? Hey, buddy, tell us why you ended up here. Spill your misfortune and let us have some fun. A guy who looked thick-armed and burly, who seemed to be the leader of this cell block, spoke up. I'm here to eat. The expressionless youth slowly curled his lips into an eerie smile. What did you just say? The big black guy looked at the other's smile, and for some reason, felt a bit horrified. I said, I'm here to eat. Quote, question mark exclamation mark quote. While a large group of big black men were standing there, dumbfounded and not knowing what the other was talking about, the youth had already begun to transform. Look at me, you scumbags. Various parts of the youth's body began to crack, black smoke and fire spewing from the fissures, and in an instant, he turned into a flaming skeleton man. Ah, a devil, a devil. The panicked group of black men subconsciously looked into the skeleton man's eyes and were quickly consumed as their souls were ignited, turning them into withered corpses. Hee. This skeleton man was the clone Roger who had come out of the mirror. Because Roger himself had returned to reality, his connection to this world was constantly weakening. It was gradually fading away, so he had no choice but to transform into the Ghost Rider, constantly reaping souls with high sin values to delay the time until he vanished. However, people with high sin values weren't that easy to find. For the Ghost Rider, reaping people with low sin values was completely devoid of nutrition. Yet, in human society, there was a place called a prison, especially a maximum security prison. Reaping in such a place was much easier than sweeping the streets. Possessing Roger's memories, the clone easily snuck in using some black magic and came directly to this private prison to harvest. To avoid disappearing from the real world, there was only one way: kill the real version of Roger. Just like time travel, where you can't accommodate two of yourself at the same time, once two identical people are in the same space-time, one of them will slowly disappear. But before killing Roger, he had to be stronger than him, because their strength was comparable and their memories were the same. Having the same memories didn't mean he could understand the other's thoughts. In the memories of the mirror clone Roger, he really couldn't understand why Roger didn't do the thing where the Ghost Rider could become stronger by reaping souls. Instead, he insisted on training himself day after day and turned to learning various kinds of black magic. Just wait, there are thousands of people in this prison. After I finish reaping, my strength will be at least 100 times greater than yours. Once I kill you, I'll be able to live in this world. Ha. The skeleton man began to cover his face and laugh in a low voice, then switched to wild laughter. Ha, you are all my food. Come. He grabbed an iron pipe, enchanted it with Hellfire, and it instantly turned into a longsword. Then, with a casual wave, the alloy iron door was melted from the inside. Mirror Roger walked out of the cell under the guise of the Ghost Rider and headed toward the next one. Afterward, he chanted a black magic spell, directly paralyzing the prison's electrical circuits. He didn't want those prison guards to escape either, because their sin values weren't low either. When the circuits shorted out due to the interference of black magic, the prison went on alert. However, this was usually to prevent people from breaking out, and they had never imagined that someone would be inside slaughtering criminals on a massive scale. Just as the prison guards were holding various firearms, tear gas, and riot helmets, guarding the entrances to the various prison corridors, deathly screams kept echoing from within. It left the prison guards looking at each other in dismay, unable to understand what was happening inside. According to reports from this station, the largest fire in history has occurred at Auburn Prison in New York State, and all 3,000+ incarcerated criminals inside died in the fire. The official announcement states that the fire started from a short circuit, but as everyone knows, the prison does not have the infrastructure for a large-scale fire. According to an escaped prison guard, there was a fire-like demon setting the fire inside. Roger saw this, and his expression slowly grew solemn. He had a bad premonition about the news playing on the TV. A large-scale fire, a fire demon, it couldn't be that clone that escaped from the mirror dimension is eating, could it? 2,000 or 3,000 heavy criminals, this sin value. Oh my god, this is bad. If it really was the clone who did it, his mana would have increased to the extreme. I don't know if he'll burst from overeating. Roger sneered. The Ghost Rider indeed harvests souls to become infinitely stronger. But in the clone's memories, there was no indication of being tortured to the point of madness. Countless evil souls kept whispering and giggling in Roger's ears. The whispers of thousands of souls, hey. I'm afraid the end result would be losing oneself and completely falling into becoming a Ghost Rider without any human thought. That's right, the Ghost Rider is powerful, but it's not without any side effects. That thing is just like the beaming divine art in martial arts novels. It might seem like there are no side effects when harvesting a few souls, but once you expand that to thousands in pursuit of power, it's impossible for there to be no side effects at all. However, the side effects won't appear that quickly, it will take some time. If it really is the clone, I need to prepare early. He gave up on sleeping, greeted Matthew, told him he would be back tonight, and drove off on his motorcycle. Roger needed to hurry and get some auxiliary items, like some magic props. Driving to a deserted open space in the suburbs, Roger came here to find someone. A person who advanced from a magic apprentice to a black wizard, named Felix Faust. This person is both good and evil. In the words of novels, he is an egoist. But his talent is undeniable. How many black wizards in the world can be self-taught without a master? Elements of the world, I devoutly summon thee, originating from the 6 directions. Reveal the truth, reveal thy true form. Following Roger's last line, after reciting, reveal thy true form, a very large house, or rather a warehouse, appeared on the empty grass. This guy's lair had an invisibility spell cast on it. You know, an invisibility spell isn't much, but to maintain it 24 hours a day is incredible, the magic power consumed is enormous. Felix Faust, are you there? I'm coming in. Remember to put away your traps, otherwise don't blame me if I break them. With the eye of judgment, any magic trap was transparent in Roger's eyes. In the cluttered warehouse, there were all sorts of strange things. Human specimens, baby bones, banshee parts, and some magic materials soaking in unknown glass jars. Roger, you fool, what are you here for again? A man with a gloomy expression slowly walked out of the warehouse. Don't say that. We don't have a grudge between us. I don't have the habit of drinking and cheating others out of their entire fortune. On the contrary, I often treat others to drinks, Roger said. Don't bring that up, or I'll kick you out. Felix's face was gloomy, and hearing what Roger said made him furious. Speak, what is it that you came to me for? Ahem, I want you to help me identify something. After saying that, Roger took out the balance he got from the 2nd generation and placed it on the table. Oh, this is. Felix picked up the balance with curiosity and began to identify it. After looking at it for a while, he put the balance down and rushed into his study. Wait, I need to look for some information. After rummaging through boxes and cabinets, Felix ran out holding 2 books. I found it. The balance of the 2nd pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Felix flipped through the detailed introduction in one of the books. This thing was made by the 2nd pharaoh of Egypt. In order to make Egypt powerful and prosperous, he prayed to the Egyptian gods to obtain endless knowledge. The Egyptian gods naturally wouldn't give it to him, so he used the lives of a huge number of slaves as a sacrifice to create this balance, and then he could communicate with an unknown mysterious entity and trade directly with it. The original purpose of the balance is the exchange of equivalent knowledge. Felix smiled sarcastically, his whole face looking even gloomier. The unknown entity isn't actually trying to cheat people, but it requires exchanging one's happiest and most precious memories. The more you exchange, the greater the reward. At that time, the pharaoh offered to exchange the lives of a large number of slaves, but unfortunately, this mysterious entity only recognizes the memories of the person who wants to trade. So this pharaoh first used his happy childhood memories to exchange for his lifespan, and later used the memories of his parents' company while growing up to trade. Finally, Roger touched his chin and took over the conversation. Finally, all his happy memories were exchanged, his life was left with only unfortunate memories, and then he went crazy. Felix smiled gloomily. Memories are inherently a part of the soul. While exchanging a part of the memories, the soul will more or less lack a part, and the soul is the most impossible to recover, so. This thing looks like a treasure, but it's actually useless. The higher the request, the more memories the other party demands. If it exceeds a certain cost, you directly become a vegetable or your soul shatters, you understand. Seems like it has great use for me. Maybe I can try to get it for free. Felix, tell me how to use this balance, Roger said. Felix remained expressionless, just extending his index finger and thumb and rubbing them together. How much? Roger asked, feeling annoyed. Rogue cultivators without a master are just this miserable. No wonder the cultivators in novels fight desperately to squeeze into big sects. Knowledge monopoly, indeed. The other party extended one finger. Roger tentatively asked, 10,000. Felix closed the book directly, stood up, and walked inside expressionlessly. 100,000. Seeing the other party stand up to leave without hesitation, Roger annoyed shouted the last number. All right, I know, 1 million. Hearing this, Felix's expression softened as he walked back and then quietly waited for Roger to pay. By the way, is it Japanese yen or Vietnamese dong? Felix slammed the book heavily on the table, bang. All right, I know it's US dollars, 1 million. You bunch of vampires. Roger took out the US dollars that he hadn't even warmed up yet from his space, counted them bundle by bundle, and placed 100 bundles directly on the table. Felix's eyes lit up, and he began to count the money, only showing a satisfied smile after confirming the amount was correct. There's no help for it, black wizards and black magic practitioners are also big spenders. All kinds of materials cost money. You can't always go rob a bank. If you did that, it would only make your wanted poster fill the entire dark world. Following the unwritten rules applies not just to ordinary people, but also to various exorcists and wizards. Those who dare to break the rules of the game will be heavily rewarded, and then attract endless wizard hunters.
Thanks for watching my video. Please like and share it.